Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Splatoon 3 Splatsville Showdown tournament, where it is sweater weather, the vibe is chill, and we're here to bring you some of the most intense Splatoon 3 action for the top teams competing for 2 grand prizes and a trip to Boston, possibly. I'm your Spray-by-Spray host, Jordan Kent, and joining me, 2 of the finest commentators in all of the Splatlands. Let's welcome in 9-hole Grains, of course, and then to the big stage, K-Bot. How we doing? Welcome in, and for both of you guys, Splatoon 3. It's been out for a couple of months. We've already seen some changes in the competitive scene, starting with you, K-Bot. What have you noticed about the trends, the meta here with competitive play in Splatoon 3?
Yeah, as we've been getting into Splatoon 3 play, right now, we had a very, it was very formulaic, trying to figure out how to play around your team in the competitive scene, right? All about the benefits of playing with a consistent roster is all about how you're playing around your teammates. And so as we're transitioning into Splatoon 3, we're starting to see teams figure out exactly how they want to play around one another in this new game, given all of the new specials, given all of the new weapons. All of these things are finally starting to click now that we're about a month in, and it's real exciting to watch.
And Nine, you obviously have played several hours already. I've been calling you each and every hour of the day, and there you are on the sticks once again getting splats. What have you noticed? Because obviously there are some changes from Splatoon 2, and teams are already starting to figure out the direction that this competitive scene is starting to go.
Yeah, the easiest summary that I can say is whatever your plan is, it better be a very quick plan because boy, oh boy, this game moves at a tick that Splatoon 2 couldn't quite reach even in the fastest metas. And K-Bot brought up a great point. People at the start were spread out. It was a little bit of a Wild West scenario, but they very quickly figured out the most effective tactics. And as soon as that came in, we started to see a lot of stability, and that's what I'm predicting we'll see here today as well.
As we mentioned, 4 top teams that have really had to splat their way to get here to these finals. Let's go ahead and check them out and take a look at the bracket as we get set here. And K-Bot, let's start with you. Our 4 teams, Destiny Bond, DNA, Starburst, and Ascension. Any thoughts on any one of these squads?
I mean, looking at this first matchup, to Nine's point exactly, the first matchup we're going to see today is going to be one that is all about that speed, all about that aggression. Destiny Bond versus DNA. Both these teams are going to want to be incredibly far up in their opponents' faces and making sure that they're not comfortable at all. Headlined on Destiny Bond by Zero and Juan, this frontline duo is going to be playing these short-range shooters of the Splash-O-Matic, splatter shots, and what have you to really try to make their opponents squirm. And on the other side, we're going to see much the same story from DNA. So on the top side of the bracket, we're to see that incredibly fast play as we get started today and seeing exactly how those teams start to gel around one another, especially after coming off of a little bit of break in the play today. But then as they start warming up later and later, we'll see exactly how fast they're able to play and if they can outpace their opponents.
And Nine, piggybacking off of K-Bot, for as talented as all these teams are, we probably won't see too much variation as far as their loadouts as well.
Absolutely not. We've got our notes here, and we've been following along as the time has gone on. We're going to see 2 weapons a lot, right? The Splash-O-Matic we're going to see, and the Sloshing Machine we're going to see. It's, again, we've kind of pieced together how these teams are going to play around the Crab Tank and around everything that the Sloshing Machine brings to the table. So what we're going to be looking for today maybe isn't big differences in terms of the weapons that these teams play, but rather how they play and how they respond to certain situations.
All right, doing a lot of laundry and a lot of crustaceans on the maps here today. Let's go ahead and check out the rules as we get set. This will be best of 5 all the way throughout. Double elimination, that's right. You're getting a healthy dose of some Splatoon 3 action here today. The higher seed will choose the mode, lower seed will choose the stage, and after the first game, the winning team will choose the mode, the losing team will choose the stage. They're your formed game modes, and then a mode cannot be chosen more than 2 times during the match, and your map list: Scorch Gorge, Eeltail Alley, Inkblot Art Academy, Flounder Heights, and Brine Water Springs. We mentioned the round trip to Boston. The 2 grand prize teams will also get a Splatoon 3 Splatsville Showdown trophy, 10,000 My Nintendo Gold points, and then various Splatoon 3 licensed items such as a jacket, backpack, pin set, and tech decals. And so movement here, K-Bot, as we get set for our very first set here, really has been accentuated in Splatoon 3 because there's so many different ways you can now move, and that almost becomes just as important, if not more important, than aiming in this game.
Yeah, indeed. And that's one of the things we're seeing a lot with certain players on certain kinds of weapons as well, especially with the frontline weapons. Talking about these short-range shooters, historically, they haven't had a lot of movement options. Well, now they have these base options of the Squid Roll and the Squid Surge. That Squid Roll is very useful, especially for that little bit of extra armor that you get in terms of trying to avoid getting splatted by your opponent. But we haven't seen a lot of the Squid Surge as much. I imagine players will start to warm up to, that movement option, especially as we start looking at some more maps getting added to the game, especially here on Flounder Heights, getting added just this week. We'll see some teams get to play it today.
Well, speaking of Flounder Heights, we are getting set for Splat Zones on Flounder Heights for our very first match here. And 9, let's go ahead and give us a breakdown of this stage and game mode. What are you looking for here when these two combine?
I mean, we're looking for a lot of the same thing we were looking for 7 years ago when this map came out in Splatoon 1, right?
It's been that long already.
It has been. If you're feeling a little old, I don't blame you here, but this is a 2-zone map. And unlike most 2-zone maps, this is a 2-zone map with a nice uninkable area in between in the form of that grading. So if there was ever a map to see some really intriguing take-back options and people swimming up different sides of those two large apartment complexes, this would be the time to see it here. So I'm fascinated that we're seeing this as our very first game, and I can't wait to see what the teams bring to the table.
Yeah, and K-Bot, it's interesting because more oftentimes than not, when you have splat zones, the zones are at the lowest part of the map. Very rarely are they this elevated, which just adds another dimension of movement and how you can approach the zones and threaten your opponent.
Yeah, indeed the case. And actually, it's one of the reasons why I feel like as we've started to see these maps get played a little bit more in competitive settings, Flounder Heights is probably one of the weaker maps for a crab tank. Most of the time, we're talking about how valuable and how important that crab tank special is on these Splash-O-Matics, but instead, that's probably going to go down in value a little bit, thanks in large part to that verticality. So watching exactly what these players start to pull out instead is going to be incredibly interesting. Other thing I want to call out, though, Bliss probably looking for an Explosher this time around, which will have a very nice time inking over these smaller, tighter zones, and it'll be very difficult for Destiny Bond to lose control of zones completely.
Yeah, once again, we're getting set for our first matchup here. It'll be, of course, on Flounder Heights, and you're going to be going here with both these teams, 9, that when you look at this map, is it difficult to sort of extend from the zones and then lock down the opposing team when you've got so many different ways you can approach the two zones that are elevated in the middle of the stage?
Yeah, the formula on this stage back in Splatoon 1 and what we've seen so far in Splatoon 3 is you have, if you do get that lockout scenario you're referring to, a couple people go down past the opponent's zone and into where they would drop red out of spun, but you'd leave a couple people back to watch the left side of the map or the opponent's right side when they could swim up the different sides of the apartment complex. If you're not looking to that way, they can go straight up to your zone with very little stopping them, and they do have a drop down to do just that. It's a very valid avenue for at least breaking up the opponent's pressure. So I would expect to see at least one person from each team stay back in those scenarios, but to your point, the others are going to be in a free-for-all.
And K-Bot, you mentioned this is not a crab-friendly map here. What specials do you feel like will do well in this situation?
It's hard to tell, especially with, things still getting settled within the first few days of this. But one of the things I wouldn't be surprised to see pull out is the brand new 10-attack Splattershot that was also added this week. That triple ink strike has that vertical column that goes down the entire map, basically. And so you're able to throw that wherever you really want to, and you'll have a lot of pressure when things are a little bit up in the air here. And of course, Zero's playing it, tried and true.
All right, we are getting set for our very first set here in the Splatoon 3 Splatsville Showdown Tournament. And already we take a look at this loadout, and no real surprises here, huh, 9?
Nope, no surprises at all. Both sides picking their choice of what short-range shooter they want to go and attack with, and a lot of other players using that sloshing machine. The Booyah Bomb on these zones might be enough to cap it just by itself.
Both teams with one zone at this point, just 20 seconds in, nothing major going on. You see the suction bomb coming this way. We have our first crab tank coming out here, K-Bot, and not a lot of room to work with, however, able to apply a little bit of pressure.
It's exactly the name of the game here with the crab tank. If you're able to apply a little bit more pressure, effectively turning your weapon into a ranged backline weapon, all of a sudden you can start to have a little bit of a window of opportunity to move forward. Exactly what Destiny Bond capitalizes on there as they take back control of that zone.
Destiny Bond already with an early lead here. Now at this point, 9, your Destiny Bond, you've got the zone. What are you trying to do as you know that DNA has got a full roster approaching you?
They do, and they've done exactly that here. You can see Jared at the bottom of the screen is moving around a little bit. They're all keeping within arms or specials or subs reach of the zone here, waiting for the opponent to come to them. And DNA just fed them 2 players right there, meaning that the major threat is gone here. That's the third. It's just the Charger here left, who's really going to have to either play aggressive or back up. Can't stay here for too long, trying to maintain a force, but right now, everything coming up in the way of Destiny Bomb, wonderfully executed.
Yeah, the countdown on Destiny Bond, maybe about 1 turn left at this point. DNA can't switch out. Now it's still a substantial lead, and K-Bot, we haven't seen DNA able to approach and reclaim the zone since the beginning as another member goes down.
Destiny Bond doing a great job of watching these drops. Now it's another 2-down situation for DNA, and it looks like Destiny Bond closing this one out. You'll notice how they were swarming around the entire map, and exactly where Nine was saying, going beyond the zones and down into that trench area where they can start really trying to pick off their opponent before they can start approaching that zone.
DNA feinting to Destiny Bond. Destiny Bond will go ahead and pick up the first game in this best of 5, and 9. That was quick. And for Destiny Bond, they gave you a clinic in how you secure the zone, which was a bit more of a back and forth at the beginning, and then finally just really seemed to have all those entry points covered, and we never saw DNA really even threaten the rest of the way.
No, and that really is the name of the game for a lot of these maps here in Splatoon 2. It just seems like once teams get a good, solid hold and they push forward, a lot of these maps do favor the aggressor, and we weren't able to see the stat screen there, but I would wager that there weren't too many times that Destiny Bond's players went down. It just seemed like they poked a little bit, they moved back a little bit, another person played with them, and this was an aggressive team in Splatoon 2, even in the missile heyday. They want to play this style, and so far Splatoon 3 has played right into their strengths.
And K-Bot, going back to Flounder Heights and how the zones are elevated, it feels like you're at such a disadvantage if you lose zone, because now your opponents have the higher ground, and they can really keep an eye on you as you start to try and approach.
And indeed, that's a little bit of the case, right? Normally, you'd expect, well, maybe there's a world where you can find an avenue climbing up the side of that apartment building, as Nine was talking about so much. But at the end of the day, if you get, 1 or 2 players ahead while 1 or 2 players are sitting on top of that zone, they're able to sit back and they're able to control any entry point that comes into the zone. Exactly what we're seeing on a lot of Splat Zones maps right now in Splatoon 3 is this idea of really favoring that lockout phase where your enemy team is nowhere even close to touching the zone with their own ink. It's exactly what we're watching there, and will be interesting to see how the rest of this progresses throughout the day today.
All right, we're getting set for tower control. We're still waiting on the stage selection for that. But 9, tower control, Splatoon 3, what have we noticed, some of the changes, some of the transitions since Splatoon 2?
Yeah, the mode itself hasn't changed as much as the maps that people play has. A lot of times in Splatoon 2, you could see tower control as a very methodical, set up your push, put one person who's building an ink armor on the tower where everyone else moves forward and attacks here. But for a lot of these maps, as we've said before, it does favor the teams that are pushing. There's so many avenues to get to where the opponent spawns, and because the opponents do have to shoot themselves into the fight, you actually get a little bit more time to react to how they're trying to set up their defense. So, especially on Eeltail Alley, which we'll be going to here, there's not a lot of avenues to get back to that tower. There's one wide way that you can go, and if that gets locked down, watch out.
So it sounds like here, K-Bot, that getting that early advantage is so critical when you hear yourself and Nine talk about being able to secure the middle, lock things down, and how difficult it is to approach. So how do you get off to that good start here in Eeltail Alley?
Well, I think here it's a lot about making sure you're not overextending, right? The second that you overextend is the second that you get collapsed around by some of the members of the opposing team. Staying on your side of the map, building up a little bit more of a turf advantage on your side, going back to the basics of turf war, right? Building up that advantage on your side of the stage, and then being able to slowly work your way forward, start to find those advantages or even those small windows of opportunity where you can start to get a single splat or two. That'll really be what opens it up for you if you can find those sorts of things.
And that's what's going to come down to here, Nine. You've got relatively the same loadouts for each team, so there isn't some crazy different weapon somebody's using that's going to really turn the tide. At this point, what do you do in these situations when everyone seems to have such a similar loadout? How do you find that advantage?
Yeah, the big thing, like K-Bot said, does go back to the basics and fundamentals. What are you communicating amongst your team? if you're not communicating properly, there are going to be small windows that you need to take that some of these teams might miss. And one of the things that really both of these teams have built their brand on is we don't care whether or not that opening is there. We'll go for it and find out if it was open after the fact. But when you have two teams doing that, momentum is such a big deal. And we saw again on a map that favored the defender how difficult it is to get back in no matter how well you play. So I'm very excited to see again how this first engagement goes and if DNA can find themselves here as they're on the back foot.
So K-Bot, how did these elite teams help advance their tower in these situations? Because it's more than just having one inkling on top trying to ride this thing. They're having a bit of a cavalry, or no pun intended, a Splatoon around them as they get set to advance. What are they looking to do in order to advance this thing?
Exactly right, Jordan. I think one of the things that's most important, I always like to treat tower control as a moving splat zone, right? You want to have a bunch of your members around that tower all at once as they move forward and push forward on with this, building up a lot of map control in that area. We'll see if one of these teams can do it as we get set here.
Here we go, tower control on Eeltail Alley. Destiny Bond has taken the first game. Let's see if they can go ahead and grab a huge advantage in this best of 5 already. See the Killer Whale 5.1 coming out. Early advantage for DNA, but down they go. 9, 4-2 advantage on the map for Destiny Bond.
Yeah, and the tricky thing here is that DNA has gone with two, count them, 52 gals here. This is a weapon that's got a bit more survivability than some of their other shooters and has that long-range Killer Whale 5.1 as its special here. So they were banking on having more survivability. Instead, I think they went down faster this time than in the last game.
And now you see Destiny Bond building on that advantage. Here comes Juan with the Booyah Bomb. Gets splatted as he comes down to earth. However, second checkpoint starting to go down already. And Destiny Bond, once again, K-Bot, applying that pressure.
Applying that pressure again. Look at how much ink they have around this tower. It makes exactly for punishes like that to come forward just the same. But it looks like DNA is able to find the wipeout, and this tower is going to go back to mid.
DNA, a chance to possibly evolve, move forward, get on the scoreboard here. They get the wipeout. Here comes another Booyah Bomb coming out. See the E-leader on the tower. They're getting to the checkpoint. And finally here, 9, you see some more purple ink on the map.
Yeah, and this is what we said. Everything that we talked about with Destiny Bond having an advantage in these maps favoring the attacker, it goes the other way as well. You see that Synapse is pushed up, got the wall out, so that's going to be 0 down. Helix hits an incredible shot. Another one down. Jordan, I think this is going to be the lead and maybe a lot more. There's just one crab tank here, and we'll see if they're able to hold and not let this knock out.
DNA trying to get the pot to boil here, take care of this crab tank. They're at checkpoint number 3. They've got the lead. Now it's 4-1 on the map. Another wipeout for DNA. It's just a matter of riding this thing here home, baby. DNA, how about the turnaround K-Bot after taking that initial punch in the face? They go ahead, move forward, respond back, and now we've got ourselves a pretty interesting set thanks to DNA. Shows that they can also throw a little bit of ink themselves here.
Yeah, absolutely the case. I mean, look at how far forward the 52 gals were going here for DNA. They were able to start utilizing a little bit of that ink coverage that they had in front of the tower and capitalizing on that, snowballing that into an advantage and surprising their opponent, popping out of the ink. And with this Ninja Squid ability, that is something that we've seen a lot so far in early Splatoon 3, that ability to surprise your opponent, keep that snowball rolling as it is exactly what DNA did there in order to find the knockout.
And 9, we talk about teamwork, collaboration, communication. Sometimes your stars just need to be stars and win those one-on-ones, and that's what we saw from DNA to really take momentum here.
Absolutely, force the issue. The 52 gal and them going with a double 52 gal may not seem like a big shift, but it does dramatically change the outcome of that game, because the 52 gal, one niche that it will always have and has always had is it generally enjoys the matchups against the other short-range shooters. There were 2 of those, 2 very, very strong players on Destiny Bond in Jared and Zero who are using it. If you think that you can force one-on-one situations, you know on paper your weapon's going to get it done, and you know the players piloting that weapon not too shabby either.
All right, Clan Blitz is coming up here, K-Bot. What do we typically see here? Are teams sticking with these same loadouts, or do you go with some different strategies because Clan Blitz is such a change of pace compared to some of the other modes here?
Yeah, you mentioned it is a change of pace, but surprisingly, we don't see a lot of that reflected in terms of the weapons these players are picking. Expect to see a lot of short-range shooters even still, and actually maybe even expect to see a stray away from an E-leader or something as we're looking to have a little bit more motion around the map. That one of the crucial components of Clam Blitz is the fact that you have to control most of the map in order to find those clams, pick those up, and then take those up to the enemy barrier. Having a little bit of extra mobility is always something that's going to be favorable here. The thing about Clam Blitz as well that we're seeing in Splatoon 3, it's not going to be incredibly knockout heavy, right? This is going to be something that probably is going to come on down to the wire, and I'm really excited to see what's going to happen here now that these teams are at one game apiece.
And Nine, obviously, it's about that coordination when you've got those power clams, and then how do you maximize the number of points you can score? How are teams doing that now? Because obviously you don't have the same slate of specials that you had in Splatoon 2 that allowed some certain strategies. You've got to change it up this time around, especially as they get set to head to Brine Water Springs.
Well, Brine Water is a whole other conversation that we can have as it's going on. But, it's funny you mentioned specials. The unique thing about the Crab Tank as compared to a lot of Splatoon 2 specials is you oftentimes had your staying power specials that could simply keep the pressure on once you were in, and you would have your engagement specials that opened the door, if you will. So you could open the door and then make yourself comfortable. Crab kind of lets you do both, right? If the opponent is positioned improperly, you can take them out from a distance, and then once you have opened it, it sort of makes sure that everything around the basket is opened up for you as well. So that's another reason to the point here, if you all are tired of Crab Tank, get ready. But that's one of the other reasons we've seen it so much here. It really does have an answer for most situations, and it lasts an awfully long time.
All right, we are tied at 1 game apiece between Destiny Bond, DNA, Best of 5, a chance to move forward here on Clam Blitz as we get set to try out one of the new stages in Brine Water Springs and K-Bot. This really feels like one of those maps that the second you spawn, you're finding yourself in a firefight. So how do these teams make sure they get this early advantage?
Exactly the case. I mean, you get the advantage by trying to play around that Ninja Squid. You saw Jared early on that overhead sneak right on up there. It is still, you can see, lurking in the distance, is going to get taken out by a good play from DNA. But if DNA is not careful, all of a sudden Jared can come up with 2 or 3 splats and start snowballing that into map control or even a Clam Blitz push here.
You see the Crab Tank coming out, 4 members alive for both squads right now. Obviously, Clam Blitz a little bit more slow developing, and you keep an eye on the Clam currency on the map at this moment. Nice little splat right there, 9, and this is possibly a chance for Destiny Bond to break through.
Yeah, great patience there. Waited for really about 10 or 12 seconds, and that is a lot of time in Splatoon to get that, but they were able to get 3 down, and now you'll notice here, because they didn't have clams, they do have control of the basket, but not an immediate threat. They're going to pass it around, shift it back to Bliss here as they try to push their way back in. I will say, though, DNA has responded very well. It appears they have some moderate control. A great shot once again by Helix.
Wow.
And again, feels like it just took a little too long to develop.
Helix sacking the quarterback. That'll go ahead and push Destiny Bond back a few yards, but they're getting set to reload. 4-3 advantage on the map through DNA and K-Bot. It feels like this approach up the ramp to get to the basket is so difficult as you have a 3-on-1 situation go favor of DNA.
It is going to be incredibly difficult, especially when you've got an E-leader as talented as Helix sitting up there, able to have such good sight lines as you're seeing now on most of the entire map. You're going to have an answer to displace Helix, and right now, it seems like Destiny Bond is having a difficult time finding that.
Oh,
Helix jumps down, and that's going to allow a push coming in for DNA.
Helix, you saw the splat. You'll relive it. That opens up a lane for DNA to start filling up the basket, and they take a nice, sizable lead here. All 4 members around there. Also, that wave breaker creating a little bit of confusion as well, too, here, 9.
Yeah, they've done a great job here, getting down to 56 just fine here for what they got. It looked like they might not get past 60. We always talk about 60 being the nice marker there. You do still get a clam whenever you make a successful defense to make a counter push, so we love to see those big pushes early on in the game. Thus far, again, it's been the double 52 gal that has given DNA enough survivability to stall their opponent, and more than anything, slow them down enough for Helix to make those big-time shots.
You saw Zero doing a nice job of staying alive, gets the Crab Tank out to help out their buddies. Here's Jared with the power clam, trying to move to the left. You see the sloshing machine meeting them there, trying to move forward, looking for some more reinforcements. The opportunity is right there, K-Bot. They just need to move forward just a little bit more.
finally have it, but weren't comfortable before they had to take down those 52 gals on the left side. Now, it looks like they finally opened up the door here and are going to stick around for a moment, allow for this power clam jump to come in. Will they be able to find it? No. It looks like Synapse was able to take care of business there, shutting down the push, and DNA will keep the lead.
DNA hanging on to a 15-point advantage, both teams with the penalty. Here's Synapse, he's got a Booyah Bomb. That's going to be an opportunity to open up some weight. Another power clam coming. Now it's just a matter of filling that thing up with a few more clams. Destiny Bond trying to take the lead, trying to move forward. However, it's a lot of purple ink coming their way. And yes, 9, they take the lead with that power clam.
Great job and great patience by Zero there to make that push happen. There were a lot of wrong times to move forward. That was not one of them. And, you know, to Brine Water, as we go back to a more neutral situation, it is very easy to get back to mid and get to more of those clam spawns. They spawn in those pods of 3, and that means that if you hit 3 pods, you are going to be able to make another power clam. We thought the push was done. They wisely went back to mid, built another power clam, kept the pressure on, and so far they're being rewarded well.
Just short on the throw for Synapse, so that's going to be some work for DNA to go pick up that power clam. 1 minute left here. DNA trailing by 14, and K-Bot at this point, do you start to think about a defensive approach and formation if you're Destiny Bond?
You absolutely have to start thinking about it here. There'll be another opportunity for Destiny Bond, to find a push if DNA does end up getting a power clam to that barrier. So we're going to see a little bit more defensive play, especially Bliss right now, playing incredibly far back here, making sure that DNA can't turn around this corner. Holding this choke point's going to be massive.
2 specials coming out from DNA. Destiny Bond also throwing the Wave Breaker to provide a little bit of defensive support. 20 seconds left, 14-point deficit, only 2 on the penalty. However, 9, DNA unable to capitalize on the open basket.
Yeah, and now they're going to have to wait, and this is big. Seconds ticking away here. They're going to have to wait for the ball to drop for them to even have the opportunity to push as they wait. Everybody is back on the map. Now Zeke goes down. Really not much room for error here. They're going to need a power clam and a little bit more.
Helix just trying to get 1 splat to help even the tide. You see the Crab Tank applying some pressure for Destiny Bond. Helix has got the rock, trying to find an opportunity. Wave Breaker comes out, but now it's 3-2. Helix can't buzz through. Taken down. Destiny Bond with the wipeout, and that should do it as they are able to hold it at the goal line here, K-Bot. And really, you saw a last little ditch effort by DNA, but Destiny Bond doing what they had to do to secure the dub.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to point out there on both sides of the map, given that we had 3 52 gals, I didn't expect to be saying 52 gals a bunch here. I don't think 9 did either. We were expecting Splash-O-Matics the entire way through, but that splash wall going out right on that turnaround point where those opponents are going to be pressuring into your own barrier, if you can control a little bit extra of that area, all of a sudden it's going to make it that much easier for you all to find advantages, to find splats, and then lock down any kind of push that the opponent will be going for. It's exactly the name of the game that Destiny Bond had to play around one of their players that was utilizing that splash wall, having a crab tank as well to help round out that entire composition, and they were able to do it there for nearly the last 60 seconds of gameplay.
And we saw a couple of times, 9, when that basket would open up, we saw the Wave Breaker coming out, and any type of special that can do some displacement is huge in Splatoon 3.
Absolutely. It gives you a lot of information because you can pretty reliably guess where the opponent is not. And oftentimes, that's all you need to be able to quickly identify where you need to fire. As K-Bot noted earlier, a lot of players are running Ninja Squid these days, partially because the weapon's favorite and partially because the map's favorite. That means that if you can identify even probably where they're going, it's a big, big boon for you, especially when these weapons take you out so quickly that you can't react.
And so now that'll set up Rainmaker here as we get set to figure out what map it'll be on here, K-Bot. And so far, it's been back and forth. It's now a 2-1 advantage for Destiny Bond as they secure the win. For Rainmaker, what's the game plan here as you look at everything that's new to Splatoon 3 and how teams are approaching it?
I mean, name of the game for Rainmaker is going to be the blitz play style that all these teams really like to favor, right? If you can find a way to very quickly rack up a lot of points on the board and get that fish right up to the opponent's base, that'll be exactly what you want to do. And capitalizing on the ability to take that space from your opponent is the name of the game here, right? You're probably not going to be relying so much on slower pushes with Rainmaker, even though that Rainmaker has that long arc shot. It's going to be be incredibly vulnerable. If someone can sneak up, there's a crack in the armor, and take out that Rainmaker, all of a sudden the push is going to be slowed. So it's going to be really about how these teams are gaining that space, utilizing that intel that Nine was talking about, and trying to make split-second decisions to push that Rainmaker forward.
And Nine, how have the checkpoints and Rainmaker changed things? Because we used to talk about how there's always one particular route you want to go that gives you a huge advantage potentially. It's a little bit harder to travel. Now we have the checkpoints, which kind of take away that 15-second round of Rainmaker we've seen before.
Yeah, it's been kind of funny, honestly, looking at how people have reacted to it. Some have said this saved Rainmaker, and some have said this ruined Rainmaker. So really, it's Taster's choice on that. But what we have seen very consistently is that on a lot of these maps, that first checkpoint doesn't take a lot of doing. Usually, if you're engaged in the middle of the map, you get 3 or 4 down, you get the first checkpoint without too much trouble. What becomes interesting on these maps is how quickly the teams opt to pop after they get the first checkpoint and push for more points, or if they opt to push ahead of it and see if they can turn that one opening into the knockout. It's always very intriguing to see, and often based on what their opponent is showing them. But I do think that the checkpoint system has added a lot of, I won't say life to Rainmaker, but it certainly added a lot of variety to the way that the teams play.
A little seasoning to the stew, as we like to say. And so K-Bot, as we get set for Inkblot Art Academy, Rainmaker here, it's not the biggest stage. And so it'll be fascinating how teams really approach it on this particular stage.
Yeah, indeed the case, right? When you were talking about things that aren't as large, all of a sudden a crab tank with so much range is going to have so much of an impact. And that's exactly the reason why we're seeing it so much. Now, again, here we'll have to see if the players opt to switch off of their 52 gals that they've been favoring, especially on the side of DNA, which I feel like is probably a viable strategy here. Killer Whale 5-1, of course, can have a little bit more of that presence, but is really good when trying to play around in messy firefights up close, less about locking down and slowing down a potential push moving forward. So it'll be interesting to see the playstyle that these teams go for. I think either can certainly work, and it'll be a matter of personal preference. Maybe DNA's been sticking with the 52 gals. They've been jamming with those, and they might end up sticking with it.
Destiny Bond just one game away from moving to winners finals here. And Nine, you point out the biggest shift has been the double 52 gals. So let's see if there's a difference in the loadouts here. You see Destiny Bond, not that time around. It's only going to be one 52 gal, but DNA, however, they're going to go with the double 52 gal. Thoughts on that, Nine?
Yeah, well, this is one of the maps that has an unequal surface that the Rainmaker has to get past. So if you are bound and determined to not give up much ground past that second checkpoint, this is the composition that you would want. And at this point, they've run it in 3 different modes here. I think it's probably here to stay.
Juan with the Booyah Bomb ready to go. 3-3 on the map as a player for each side goes down. Booyah Bomb can't do anything. But for the most part, Destiny Bond starting to threaten a little bit. You see a couple members of DNA super jump back to spawn, and they're retreating a little bit. And here's Destiny Bond. Oh, but the Killer Whale 5.1, along with the 52 gal here, giving an early advantage to DNA, K-Bot.
The super jumps back allow DNA to collapse around their opponents after they start to be a little bit uncertain, right? There was a window of opportunity, but DNA was very quick to close the opportunity, and now they're going to keep pushing forward here. 2 down, Ink Vac. This is the cookie cutter combo right here, using that Ink Vac cone that disrupts the enemy team and prevents anyone from even getting a little bit of ink down to stop that Rainmaker. DNA takes this down to 6.
DNA just inches away from tying up this set. Now it's just a matter of hanging on to this lead at this point. They're applying the pressure. It's 3-3 right in the living room of Destiny Bond at this moment here, Nine.
Yeah, this is unbelievable. You do not see it go to 6 this quick, oftentimes between 2 teams of this caliber. They wasted absolutely no time and the perfectly timed Ink Vac, as was noted here. So we saw this earlier in the tower control game where one team opened up with a big push and the other made a giant counter push as well. Already now, 2 down on one side and a couple specials out as well. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to seize the exact same initiative, and we'll start to see this double 52 gal comp slow things down a little bit. But it's nice to see Destiny Bond at least firing back with that first checkpoint.
You saw Juan trying to throw out that Booyah Bomb. It looks like they're going the route here, K-Bot, of letting the Rainmaker sit there, push forward. However, they're not going to be able to take advantage of it. That resets, and now another opportunity for DNA with 2 specials to make a push here, K-Bot.
2 specials online, but critically that ink back in the hands of Helix. Watch this Rainmaker get right up into position, going right up this ramp, and then probably the ink back's going to come through, but it looks like all the meanwhile, somebody from Destiny Bond was able to find an angle towards that Rainmaker, stop the push in its tracks, and now might have found an opening for themselves, the team in yellow.
Zero with that crab tank, pinching out a splat right there at this moment. 2-1 advantage in our games. Don't forget, Destiny Bond with the victory, they'll move on to winners finals. DNA trying to push it to a 5th game. Little one-on-one, a couple of splats traded here. 3-2 advantage on the map for Destiny Bond, but it feels like at this point here, 9, DNA has done a really nice job of establishing stage control.
They had, but it all went away just as quickly as we had said it there. Thankfully, the Rainmaker reset bought them some precious seconds. They had just enough time to get their respawns off, and it looks like Destiny Bond wasn't able to push their players up into the truly dangerous position. Right now, the sloshing machine is the one carrying the Rainmaker. Remember this. This is the weapon that you would love to be able to fire up over to that top left area. As it stands right now, they're going to need shooters and specials to do it. They've done a pretty good job so far, and they have a lot of time left on that Rainmaker.
And you saw Destiny Bond with that Rainmaker dancing like they were on TikTok, trying to stay alive. Here's Zero trying to push forward. Zero goes down. 4-2 advantage DNA. You feel like K-Bot, this is where they can finally start to push Destiny Bond back.
That was exactly what Zero was trying to do, find an opening like we were talking about earlier, but it just looked like he couldn't quite find the angle there. DNA punishes, then they keep rolling forward with these 52 gals that have been doing them pretty good service so far, and now with 75 seconds to play, they're still sitting comfortable. If they can set up to have the entire map advantage here, especially over mid, they'll be sitting pretty well for themselves.
You saw Zeke trying to take on 2. Zeke staying alive, but can't anymore. That's a splat for Destiny Bond. Juan with the Booyah Bomb coming out. Killer Whale 5.1 also out. So here's another wave, another push here, 9. Can Destiny Bond get it at this moment?
This is their best opportunity. That's a machine down, but Zero's Crab gets taken down by a great shot from Helix here. That was the big advantage. They have one up in a good position, but I worry that it's just taking them a little bit too long. Again, we've said precious seconds means that the defense can stabilize here, and as soon as these walls start to come out, you know you have to back up. Nothing is sneaking through them. So once again, DNA by the skin of their teeth, saving just enough time to get their defensive resources.
Rainmaker in possession for Destiny Bond. Under 20 seconds left. Can they push forward, trying to take this set, or will we go to a 5th game? DNA has got to play defense, and that's a splat that goes down as DNA holds on to the 4-2 advantage. Looks like they're going to hang on here. They're trying to burst the Rainmaker shield. Everybody right at the spawn for DNA. It's going to be a back-and-forth battle. Who can claim it first? It's turning purple. It's turning yellow, but time runs out as DNA takes the game and forces a 5th and decisive game. And K-Bot, it was all about that opening onslaught that allowed DNA to play with the lead.
Yeah, if you can play with the lead, getting it down to 6, I mean, you're almost expecting the enemy team to try to go for the knockout, right? If they're not able to do that, all of a sudden, you're going to have a lot more wiggle room to play with in the game. You can play much more defensively. You don't have to worry about making commitments to push the Rainmaker forward, and instead, you can play much more back. Exactly what this 52 gal composition wants to do. Set up those walls, slow down the pace of your opponents, and just play defensively overall. And Destiny Bond just could not quite find the answer. Other thing I want to call out though there, at the very end of that game for DNA, you saw them not pop the Rainmaker shield. Those sorts of things are incredibly smart from DNA, because the second that the Rainmaker shield gets popped, there's a possibility that one of those sneaking members of Destiny Bond is able to paint up a path right in front of that Rainmaker, pick it up and get a few more points on the board. Might have been devastating, but they play it patient, they don't pop the Rainmaker shield, and they secure themselves the victory.
And 9, you really look at the ability of DNA to get that initial lead, but then for Destiny Bond, we saw it. They weren't able to take advantage at the end. In fact, one of their crab tanks going down at the last moment there.
Yeah, so difficult again. You want to pull the crab tank out, and against most weapons, you can react to somebody firing at your crab tank. The one weapon you can't, well, maybe not the one weapon, but the weapon they had that they couldn't was Helix's Charger there. One of the few weapons that can apply enough damage, pinpoint enough to the vulnerable spot of the crab tank there. So credit to Helix for even having the wherewithal to be there in that situation, but to hit the shot as well. And again, I just want to credit the way DNA played that. Oftentimes at this level, the team that gets the most push opportunities usually finds a way to go through. It's just how this usually ends up working. They played it so smart all throughout, and as K-Bot said, the brains with all the pressure in the world against you to know, hey, let's not pop this Rainmaker. Great stuff from them all around, and a great set thus far.
So K-Bot, we're going to have tower control, Scorch Gorge. DNA won tower control last time, and so they get a chance to now play their game that they won. What do you see, this map, this mode? What's the key thing to keep in mind here?
So one of the things about tower control on Scorch Gorge specifically, or any Scorch Gorge mode, right, are those elbow points, these turnaround points. We were talking about a little bit on Bilgewater, right? Very similar thing actually comes together with Scorch Gorge as well. You want to make it so that at that smallest possible point where the opponent will be approaching in from on the far side of the map, you want to make sure that your opponent can't turn the corner and start getting right into your spawning area. That'll be the name of the game, and the team that can control that will be able to shut down or open up pushes on their side of the map. So that'll be exactly what we're looking out for here. And with these compositions, playing a lot of these 52 gals, they should have a great job of doing that with these splash walls as well.
So Nine, if you're Destiny Bond, how do you combat these 52 gals that are coming out? Do you stick with what you typically use, or how do you maybe throw a counterpunch in this situation, since ever since DNA switched those two 52 gals, they've really evened up this entire set?
Yeah, it's a great answer, and it's one that I think a lot of these teams aren't really prepared to answer because, again, we have seen so much of the machine and the Splash-O-Matic and the Crab warfare all throughout, but I think if your opponent is getting the better of you here with the 52 gals, you have to recognize that, again, they're trying to force you apart and force these fighting situations and slow the pace of play. Zero, a very capable user of a number of different shooters. Maybe he switches over to a 52 gal, or maybe to either the Splatter Shot or the newly released Tentatek Splatter Shot. Weapons that have some bombs that you can actually use to very quickly break those walls. It's a tried and true method. We've seen Zero go back with the Burst Bomb using Splash-O-Matic. Hasn't gone as well for them in that scenario. So, a potential opportunity, but really, as long as they don't let DNA get the ball rolling, they're going to have a fighting chance.
We are less than 20 seconds away from Game 5 in this winners semis set. Who will move on to Grand Finals with a chance to earn a trip to Boston? Let's go ahead and take a look here. Tower control, Scorch Gorge, Destiny Bond, DNA, winner takes all and moves to the Grand Finals. And already, Nine, do we see anything different from these loadouts?
I mean, we called it there. Zero has gone back to the Splatter Shot. Great job, I think, at least having this idea in the back of their head here. They're going to have a very nice Trizooka that can be very, very strong on this map with the way defenses usually go, and of course, the suction bomb all the way through. So far, it does look like they left their slashing machine a little off by themselves, but Zero might have a chance to capitalize on that. Dives in, is able to get one, does get taken down though, so this push not yet done for the time being, although it doesn't look like it's going to reach too dangerous of a spot.
As you mentioned, Destiny Bond getting on the board, but it wasn't enough to do significant damage. DNA now trying to send it back the other way. You see Bliss on top of the tower. They're trying to find a couple of targets there. You see that Splatling really able to apply a lot of pressure from the distance. Splash wall coming up at an opportunistic time. And now Destiny Bond takes the lead. They're at checkpoint number 1, and already you see how well they're positioning themselves, K-Bot, as they try to get set for this next checkpoint.
Yeah, they're looking to try to find an advantage here, but actually with Bliss going down, that long-range presence going down, the push starts to fall apart. All of a sudden, 3 squids. Now, the delayed wipeout coming in here, where one of the members are starting to get staggered on the respawns. DNA opening up this area. Look at how far forward Zeke is pushed. Well around this corner I was talking about earlier. This is a great position for DNA, and I expect them to clear this checkpoint with ease.
You see Synapse on your left trying to push forward. Now it's DNA that has taken the lead. Let's see if Bliss can hopefully provide some reinforcements for Destiny Bomb, but they're a little grouped up, and DNA here, Nine, at the second checkpoint, trying to avoid that Trizooka. I think they're able to escape it, but already DNA again on the offensive push, applying that pressure in the first half of this game.
And great call out on the Trizooka there. That Trizooka is the only reason that this push isn't still going on right now. Took out 2 members, including the range there from Helix. So we said that that was a great reason to bring it out here, and it is already paying dividends for them. But one important note about this map here, you can see where that tower ends up going. It actually does give you the opportunity to jump on the opponent's side of the map. It's very clever, and it's a little bit cheeky there, but it works, and that was why Synapse was able to get so far pushed up. You see that the members of Destiny Bond not able to do the same. They get bunched up on the right and very quickly go down as a result of that.
And that is the wipeout, so DNA with the advantage can once again try to get set for another push as that tower returns. And so far what we're seeing here is DNA's ability to quickly snuff out any of the other pushes here, K-Bot. And now if you're Destiny Bond, you're going to have to not only secure this tower, but find a way to extend these pushes.
Yeah, brilliant use of the Wavebreaker on the other side of the map, right? With Helix going that down right around that turning point, all of a sudden the advantages for Destiny Bond to actually find a way in are minimal, and then it starts to allow the rest of the members of DNA to storm forward. It looks like DNA is starting to come over mid here as well. They're looking to try to build up a little bit more map control in this area and making sure that Destiny Bond doesn't have a chance to touch this tower, but we're starting to see trades back and forth here as all of these trades are going to go to the favor of DNA since they're the ones in the lead, especially with this second checkpoint cleared.
Minute 45 left. DNA with a 16-point advantage. They are trying to punch their way to winners finals. Here's Helix just trying to cover a little bit of turf, provide some movement for their team. Tower is now coming for DNA. They're trying to push forward. Down goes one member. Now it's 4-3 advantage for Destiny Bond. Oh, but a beautiful snipe by Helix, and now Helix trying to pick off one more with that Wavebreaker, and another one there, 9.
I mean, the E-Leader, all these other weapons that we have talked about, the reason why they've become so prevalent and so popular, and the reason why everybody is running Ninja Squid, is because this gosh darn E-Leader is so powerful. So many of the map's favorite, so many great sightlines, and if you have a player like Helix who can hit those shots when necessary, you're going to get paid dividends over and over. With just 1 minute left, DNA has been in firm control of this one.
Zeke going down, but not before a trade. Now it's 3-2, Destiny Bond 3-1. Opportunity possibly knocking, but DNA on the tower. They're wiped out. This feels like, K-Bot, maybe your last opportunity to get a solid push here before you get knocked down to the loser's bracket.
If any moment is the chance, it is this moment, especially with Jared already in this position, already with the crab tank, and now looking to use it, surprising the members of DNA, hopefully, but not able to find much value from it right now, but notably pushing Helix back. The Trizuka comes in as well. Booyah Bomb down and thrown down, and it looks like there might be an opportunity for Destiny Bond to move forward. Have to be careful of their backs, have to be careful all around. Jared's still looking to try to sniff out where some of these members of DNA are coming from, but now they're at the second checkpoint, and they're looking to try to clear this. We'll see what specials come out here as DNA looks to try to take this one back.
Perfectly timed Booyah Bomb. Will it be enough? Tower moving forward. They're stopped too short, though, but then they finally get the win at the buzzer. It was enough of a team effort there, 9, to withstand the Booyah Bomb, the onslaught from the E-Leader, and Destiny Bond snatching victory from DNA to find their ways into winners finals. How about that finish, 9?
I mean, what a great set, and for it to end like that as well. There's so much that I would love to break down about the way that that game ended, but K-Bot brought up one very important point there, and that's in those final minutes, you're putting all of your specials to the opponent's base. You know that Helix is back there. You know that they've got a couple members back there with some Booyah Bombs and some long-range specials. You cannot neglect your flank. And that time you saw one of those pesky 52 gals that's so good at surviving was going to win every 1v1. They had just enough pressure. I'm not sure which two players, but two players quickly moved back. When the Booyah Bomb came in, you saw Juan, not greedy for points, knowing how much time was on the clock, could jump off, put a little bomb backwards there to assist with that, jump back on. They knew they weren't going to be able to hold it for very long, but they knew they were going to be able to hold it for just enough.
So the victory for this set goes all the way 5 games. Let's take a look at the bracket as Destiny Bond. It comes down to the final second here. K-Bot, best of 5, that's all you could ask for here. So Destiny Bond will head to winners finals, DNA to loser semis. But from what we just saw, this is going to be very, very competitive. Well, that is just one half of winner semis. When we come back, it'll be Starburst versus Ascension. We'll take a quick little break here, but you're watching the Splatoon 3 Splatsville Showdown Tournament. More action when we come back.
Why, hello there, sweetie. You can call me Gram Grams. I start my mornings with piping hot tea and ice cold domination in this here Nintendo Switch sports game. I just ranked up in survival bowling, so you know I'm ready to serve, turkey. For those of you less seasoned, survival bowling in Nintendo Switch Sports is online with 16 competitors. Get a top score and we reduce our competition. Smooth like gravy, baby.
Awesome.
Try and learn from the replay, dear. Final round. I can taste victory. These two look tough, but I'm perfectly cooked. And I look good because these are all the outfits I've collected dominating y'all. Surprised? You shouldn't be. This is Graham's game. I got the stuff. Do you, turkey? Nintendo Switch Sports. Available now. Rated everyone 10 and up.
And howdy y'all again. Welcome back to the Splatoon 3 Splatsville Showdown Tournament. Jordan Ken alongside 9 and K-Bot, and we just saw two teams go the distance in winter semis. There was a matchup between Destiny Bond and DNA that went down to the final second of Game 5. So let's check out the bracket and take a look at the upcoming traffic here. Destiny Bond moving on to winners finals. They will play the winner of Starburst and Ascension, and you see DNA going down to the loser semis. So Starburst and Ascension. 9, we saw Starburst go 13-0 in the ladder, 3-0, and then 3-2 versus Sayonara. So Starburst, a very powerful, talented team, almost getting knocked out before they got here.
Yeah, Starburst has won virtually everything in Splatoon 3. They were the dominant team coming out of Splatoon 2, and early on in Splatoon 3, they looked like they had some vulnerabilities, but these kids are so smart. They figure things out so quickly. They figured out the way that this current meta was going before a lot of other teams did, and they have been dominant in North American play. So to see them have a close set with Sayonara was great. Will they be able to keep it up, or was that just a little bit too much? Did it take too much out of them to get that win to go the distance today?
Don't forget, our top two teams will each punch their ticket to the Splatoon 3 North American Championship later this year, and what we've seen so far here, K-Bot, is that some teams are willing to change their approach after the very first set, very first game potentially. We saw the double 52 gals come out for DNA. It feels like still in the early stages of this meta as people are learning more and more about the game and updates are coming. Adaptability is huge for any team based upon how you're doing and also what you're seeing from your opponent.
And precisely the case, right? I think that's one of the things as well that Starburst does particularly well, right? Oftentimes, you're noting that Ice will typically be going over to an E-leader or Charger if he gets to choose what he wants. But in a lot of cases where the enemy team is playing a Charger, Ice will actually be switching over to the Flingzo Roller. Now, you might be like, whoa, Roller instead of a Charger, but hear us out for a moment. The Flingzo Roller can ink up basically the entire map in the blink of an eye, and has the returning Tenemissile special back from Splatoon 2 to displace an enemy anchor on the back lines, open up even more space for your team, and that'll exactly be the game plan that Starburst is looking for if there is a Charger on the enemy side of the map. So gonna have to see what they elect to go for here.
Tentamissiles, everybody knows them and loves them, of course, and they still play a role in Splatoon 3. So we're getting ready for tower control. Inkblot Art Academy 9. We saw this for Rainmaker in the previous set. What do you see here with tower control? Again, a lot of the action taking place in the middle, and it feels like getting into the enemy's base and being effective there is what really turns the tide.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of the most played map and mode combinations in Splatoon 2, right? And
yeah,
with the exception of maybe some specials changing, the game plan didn't really change. The stage didn't really change. So oftentimes you're going to see that very first checkpoint go without too much resistance. The second checkpoint going to be the very important one. You're going to see players push well ahead of the tower. And as K-Bot said, Tentamissile's the only truly global displacement special that's left. The Killer Whale 5.1 functions sort of similarly, but it's not as direct. So it wouldn't surprise me if both of these teams opted to use that, find a way to support your other players who were way ahead, because getting past that second checkpoint is worth its weight in gold on this map and mode.
Yeah, and once you get up there, K-Bot, what have we seen from effective teams when you're there getting to that second checkpoint, trying to make your way? And this is really where the lead changes, right? That second checkpoint, who can get the furthest past that? How do you continue to apply that pressure when it feels like the opposing team is just spawning right on top of you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things that you can really try to do, right? One of the instances is actually to work your way up the left side of the map, take a little bit more of that elevation advantage into parts of the map that you might not commonly think about. This would be an incredibly important position. But if you can get things like a crab tank all the way up against the opponent's spawning wall, all of a sudden you'll have a decent eyesight down into their spawning area, and you can exactly see where they're looking to try to jump in from, and maybe even pick off a splat or two in the process. So that'll be kind of a large part of what this game plan is. Once you get around that area, it's going to be all about continuing to control that space, expand your inkable area in front of that tower to allow the tower to follow in the push.
We've seen a lot of Booyah Bomb as well, too, and 9 is someone that frequently throws those down online all the time. Booyah Bomb strategy, because obviously in tower control there's a big old bullseye as far as where you should throw that at. How do teams utilize that to really help themselves out? Is that more of an offensive or defensive tool in tower control?
I mean, that's the wonderful thing about Booyah Bomb. It's both. It's whatever you want it to be. It's survival.
It's
it's
the Kawhi
offense,
Leonard
it's
of
defense.
specials, isn't it?
Not within the last couple of years, but I get what you were going for there. No, it is important to note the Booyah Bomb has changed somewhat from its Splatoon 2 counterpart, but the main role that it performs, not all so different. We saw a Booyah Bomb almost end that last tower control game before the late heroics could be had, but one thing I think that is very fun about Booyah Bomb in this game is the role that it gives the sloshing machine, where the sloshing machine can go up and attack. And as K-Bot said, how you push up that left side is very important, and the sloshing machine loves playing at those ranges, loves firing up at the opponents as they're trying to come down. And if you misjudge and somebody was waiting for you, you can pop your Booyah Bomb, get a little bit of survivability, and even if you aren't able to last as the opponent is shooting at you while you're in Booyah Bomb, at the very least, that's information for your teammates. Maybe somebody can get over there to capitalize and get a little revenge for you. But it's such a great special pair with that weapon, and that's why we see it virtually everywhere.
K-Bot, you were talking about Ninja Squid and how that's been such an important ability. And for a lot of folks that are really diving into competitive play, as Splatoon 3 has really welcomed so many more players to the player base, how do teams, or individuals, I should say, go about choosing what abilities to roll with? I mean, how do they get to that determination?
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes it's going to be all about the play style you're looking to play, right? If you're on something that wants to be a little bit more aggressive in the face of the enemy team, you also want to make sure you're not giving away your position as often, which is exactly what Ninja Squid attempts to do, right? If you're able to swim around, you can just pop out of your ink puddle all of a sudden and surprise your opponent. That's a lot of what it is, where Splatoon, we don't often think of it as an intel game, but sometimes it's worth thinking about it as such. In these like 10 or 15 second increments, all of a sudden your opponents can either know a lot about where you are or not know a lot. So that's the reason why Ninja Squid is so impactful. But in terms of other things, I mean, a lot of it comes down to personal preference. We do see some commonalities. We're actually seeing a decent bit of quick respawn right now, and even a little bit of stealth jump as well on teams that are looking to continue jumping in and sustaining their pushes for a long amount of time. But at the end of the day, a lot of it does come down to personal preference and personal play style. There's very rarely a common, this is the correct answer kind of strategy when it comes to your gear loadout.
Yeah, that's what's interesting here, Nine, is you still see some variation despite the fact that, we're going to see a lot of splash, a lot of sloshing machine. And so as we get set for this very first matchup, again, it's going to be Tower Control, Inkblot Art Academy, both these teams, Starburst and Ascension, getting ready to go here. Tell us a little bit more about Ascension. You said they were kind of the dark horse here, and what we're seeing is any team can beat any team on any given day. We were surprised a few months ago at a tournament about what we saw. Ascension, what have you seen from them so far?
Yeah, Ascension is a top-tier squad from Splatoon 2. They cut their teeth against these top-level teams for a great many years, and the players on the team, Evan, Sven, Twig, and Odds, they are top-tier players, and a lot of them very, very strong at the weapons that they have been playing. We were a little bit, I won't say surprised necessarily, but we weren't sure what we were going to get from this team, and to see them make top 4 is, on one hand, surprising, but on the other hand, not so much. They've played against these types of players for a long time, and they have very quickly fallen in line with what they like in the meta. The sloshing machine, the 52 gal, the splash-o-matic, various chargers, that's what these players want to be playing. So the fact that it has been that sort of meta here has let them very, very quickly figure out how they want to make their team play, how they want to dive at certain parts of the map very quickly, jab a little bit, fire a little bit, see if they can bait somebody coming out to attack them and collapse on them here. So it's kind of been touch and go for them. They have very quickly established and more re-established, I guess is a better way to put it, their throne here at the top of Splatoon 3.
K-Bot, you look at the different roles every player has to play on a team, and you've got your frontliners, but let's talk about the anchor position for a little bit, because it feels like it's so important here when you see how powerful E-leaders can be. What is the anchor position trying to accomplish for any highly competitive team?
It really does depend on what your team wants to do in terms of playstyle, right? That E-leader is looking to play passively, is looking to have large sight lines, and is looking to use its range to really shut down any kind of momentum that an enemy team could be thinking about, right? If an E-leader has intel, that's really all it needs in order to shut down some things, get a splat here or there, and all of a sudden, it'll be something where that E-leader can translate that into an advantage. But we're also seeing a few other weapons get picked in this backline or anchor position. Sometimes it'll be a heavy splatling. That's objective is more so to help lay the groundwork for a little bit more ink around the map. And then, of course, I was just talking about the Flingza roller that I expect Ice to play at some point today. It's going to be about charging up, having, of course, that ink around you, but also about charging up for those Tenet missiles and firing them off at nearly all times.
Here we go, Tower Control, Ink Blot Art Academy. Get out your paints, get out your smocks. Let's go ahead and get some ink on the turf here. A nice little matchup here between Starburst and Ascension 9. I always go to you here. What do you see from these loadouts, my friend?
Well, we saw exactly what we expected here from Starburst. Double Splash-O-Matic. We have Bran on the Sloshing Machine and Ice on the Flingza Roller. One important thing to note, though, on the side of Ascension, Shinx has been subbed in and will be using the Tri-Slosher. This is a weapon that Shinx has made for many, many years, but it's one of the other weapons that is so strong offensively. We all know what that hitbox can do once it gets rolling.
So a little bit of a variation in the loadouts here for Ascension, but now we see Starburst. They're pushing the tower forward. They're past the first checkpoint. It's 4-3 on the map, and you've got Ice with those missiles. Here we go, K-Bot. A little bit of displacement here in the enemy's own backyard.
Precisely the case, but the Wavebreaker's looking to do the exact same out of Starburst. As that one was coming forward for Ascension, it looks like Ascension was actually able to capitalize on that Wavebreaker being down. So the displacement works in both ways, and this time it's going to be Ascension on the defensive side, holding that second checkpoint, that critical checkpoint we were talking about earlier.
We were just going to say that same thing, K-Bot. The fact that they were able to prevent Starburst, it really seemed like they had no issue getting past the first checkpoint. From that second checkpoint, now it's Ascension's turn here, 9. Start to turn the tide, and with 4-4 on the map, nobody with a special ready to go, it's anybody's momentum at this moment.
It is, but as we say that already, 2 going down here. Twig is the last one, and it is the 52 gal, so that's the weapon you want still up. So they're going to actually advance a little bit, and Shinx wisely moving forward to take just a few more points. And I believe actually that Twig was able to escape, which means that everyone else should be able to jump to a position to at least maintain some form of map control. So great job on the defensive by Starburst, but great job by Ascension not selling the farm to get a couple more points.
Let's check in on Evan with that sloshing machine, throwing a couple of fizzy bombs. Booyah bomb ready to go, trying to find an opening for their teammates. As Ascension once again pushing, they've had most of the momentum as of late, but still trail Starburst. At this point, Ascension a chance to possibly take the lead. Now they're at checkpoint number 2, trying to fight through it. Nobody on the tower, and that is 3-1 on the map. Starburst holding it down, K-Bot.
But look at what's able to happen. Ice on the back lines, pops the 10 missiles, finds 3 with them, and then all of a sudden it allows Starburst to roll through, knowing exactly where the opposing team is, and also knowing that the opposing team has to move. If they can time up the way that they're actually engaging on their opponent, they're able to clear them out with ease, and now will be looking to try to make an advantage of their own, especially with this crab tank in beautiful position from Bangle, able to find one onto Evan, allowing a lot of purple ink to go down in front of this tower, and this could be the chance where they break this second check.
And you just saw Bagel toasting some members of Ascension, and that allows them to move forward and break the checkpoint. Now it's Ascension on the back tentacle, trying to make sure Starburst doesn't advance. Evan trying to help out here. Evan dealing with a couple of burst bombs, able to avoid those. Booyah bomb coming out, but it's still a lead for Starburst at this point here, 9. And if you're Starburst and this clock winding down, are you thinking defense, or do you still keep the pedal to the metal?
I think you still keep the pedal to the metal. You just broke the second checkpoint. It was about by 1 second, but you still broke it. Every push that you get at this point, you can almost look at maybe 15 or 20 points that's going to come of it if you hold it the same amount of time you just did. With the way that they're playing right now, using Ice to move up, and the positioning of this crab tank that is way ahead, if they're able to get rid of Shinx on the front line, they should have an opportunity to push forward. But no, Shinx going to be able to take 2 out, a 1v2 and a trade. Incredible individual play, giving them some breathing room and maybe even a chance for a counter push here.
So an opportunity for Ascension. They had a slight numbers advantage, but oh, a nice little splat on Bran, and then here comes the miss. That's going to provide a little bit more support. Splash wall coming up here. 4-4 on the map. Ascension just trying to find a splat or 2 more to try and get past this checkpoint. Under a minute left. Here they are, K-Bot. They finally have someone on the tower. Here's a flurry of yellow ink. Here's Ascension taking the lead from Starburst, K-Bot.
and look at the position of Evan on that sloshing machine, taking away some of the space from Starburst. Now the crab tank gets popped, and it's going to come up with 2, so it looks like the push is going to stop here for Ascension, but down to 26 is going to be at least a little bit of extra room for them to work with. That's not going to blow over so much here on the defensive sides, especially with what we've been seeing so far for Ascension. Starburst might have an opportunity here, but they're going to have to fight for it, especially now that they go 2 down.
2 down, Ascension in prime position, but now it's a match. 2-2 and a special for Starburst. Here we go, 9. Last opportunity of the game for them.
Yep, and a lot of ink back here. This means that Ascension is going to be able to safely build their specials from a distance. Genex is going to go to try and trade and take 1. That's an okay trade. You're happy with that because you are at the advantage here. You will start to gain special as you continue to trade paint with the opponent. Another special down, a well-timed Booyah Bomb. Can they collapse on top? Evan swimming and gets there just before the crab tank. But Jordan, even if the game hadn't ended right there, Ascension was in a great position as they very convincingly stop the final push and take game 1 against our presumptive favorites.
How about Ascension? We mentioned they might be the dark horse. Well, they are neighing and huffing as they go ahead and take the first game here. And how about Evan there, K-Bot? The patience to wait on that Booyah Bomb. Had several opportunities to maybe try and launch it super far. No, saved it, was able to rise up, survive the other Booyah Bomb, and then finally put the punctuation mark on a surprising upset. It felt like Ascension was really applying most of the pressure there, and when they had to play defense, it mattered the most as they were able to maintain those numbers advantages.
Indeed the case. You bring up the point about that Booyah Bomb there as well for Evan, holding on to it until the moment where someone's able to actually get on the tower. Maybe it's Evan himself, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. The important part about a Booyah Bomb when it's thrown to the tower at the end of the match is the ability for another one of your teammates to also get on the tower to force overtime to end. That's the main reason why you want Booyah Bomb there on the tower, is because if it clears off the enemy team and one of your teammates is able to hop on, all of a sudden, game over, the victory whistles blow. Exactly what Ascension's able to do there, stopping that push before it gets too far out of hand, and that's going to be what ends up for them. But, I mean, what an interesting game to kick ourselves off with, especially, as Nine mentioned, I mean, a lot of people are looking at Starburst as the tournament favorites here, so they go down in game 1. We'll see if they decide to make an adjustment.
Rainmaker coming up here next, and as we've seen with Rainmaker, you can talk about the checkpoint and whether or not you love what it did to Rainmaker. Personally, I think it makes it very interesting, 9, because now you've got to have 2 sustained pushes in order to get this victory here. So if you're Starburst, you just kind of get upset in tower control, and you have a championship pedigree. What's the conversation like for them as they try to bounce back here in Rainmaker?
I think the big conversation point and where that game started to fall apart is they lost sight of different members. Really, before their final push could get started, Twig, the 52 gal, and one of the finest Kensa 52 gal mains back in Splatoon 2, was in their back line. And you're not going to win, maybe the whole theme of the day, you're not going to win a 1v1 against a skilled 52 gal. The weapon is built for that exact purpose. So maybe it's the matter of them not checking everything right, or it's Ascension simply being one step ahead and knowing where to hide. But in Rainmaker, where the game is all about making sure that each push counts a lot, if you get separated and the push slows, the opponent's going to slowly passively build special meter, you aren't going to have time to wait. So I think for them, maybe the big adjustment, if not from a weapon standpoint, is let's check behind, let's take just a couple seconds to clear that out, and then make our push forward, because Twig absolutely dominated the back half of that game.
We're going to Eeltail Alley, and what we've seen before, it was tower control in Eeltail Alley during the last set of winter semis here, K-Bot. Now with Rainmaker, again, it's not a lot of room to maneuver east and west. It's a very north and south map. How do you try to make sure you sustain a push, Rainmaker, on this particular map?
One of the most interesting things I think about Eeltail, specifically for Rainmaker, is all of the different walls actually provide perfect position for natural cover. We don't talk about cover as much in Splatoon, something where there's a wall between you and the opponent where they're trying to shoot ink at you from. But it's actually incredibly valuable on this map, especially while you're navigating the Rainmaker. You want to keep that Rainmaker safe. All of a sudden, a lot of the alleys here on this map in particular allow you to get that Rainmaker just a few extra points more.
No changes to the loadouts, it looks like here, 9. Ascension with the very first game of this best-of-5 set. They're moving forward here, and Now with the Rainmaker, it's a matter of who gets it, when they want to move forward with it, and when you have that numbers advantage. But now we see a Crab Tank ready to go for Bagel, and already it is some intense action to get this game started here, 9.
I mean, this is the setup they want. They want one person to be able to follow up there, but Shinx, again, with the Tri-Slosher, we talked about this at the start. This is a weapon that's hitbox favors itself against short-range shooters, and as you saw right there, can hit the vulnerable spot of the Crab Tank. The formulaic approach that Starburst is taking, where they use a Crab Tank and missiles to open it up, does not work when the opponent has a weapon that is tailor-made to beat that exact scenario. First checkpoint falling very, very quickly, and thus far, Ascension seems to have all the answers.
Ascension once again threatening. It's 4-4 on the stage here. Now 4-3 advantage. One of those 52 gals going down for Starburst. So an opportunity here, K-Bot, to start to move forward if you're Ascension.
Starting to move forward a little bit here. Oh, now able to actually find the Rainmaker burst. Brand moves a little bit too far forward there as well and gets called out for it. Ascension's doing a great job of continuing to control this space, continuing to make sure that Starburst doesn't have an avenue. And look at this entire side of the map that's painted yellow. They don't have to worry about any Sharkers over here. No one's going to be using Ninja Squid in the puddle if there's no purple ink there. But now looks like finally some specials get forced out of Starburst. They're starting to take a little bit more space. And now Evan on this Charger has to play a little bit more passively. Here comes a potential push out of Starburst. Expect to see this go by pretty quick if they do pick it up.
Really good call out, K-Bot, because 9, we saw it. Ascension started to backpedal as they were inking, and that's not going to help you out if you're going to try and advance things. So now Starburst trying to really make a push here, apply a little bit of pressure and try to turn the tide of this game. 3-2, they get to the checkpoint. Here comes that inkjet, but too little too late as Starburst now just 1 point away from tying this thing up here, 9.
Just 1 point away, but look at all it cost them there. A very, very good inkvac there used by Swen in conjunction with that inkjet. Actually, maybe even protected Shinx long enough to make that inkjet happen. With that, they were able to take out 3 members there and stop any counter push. I thought that they were going to pick that up afterwards. Instead, it's going the other way. If Shinx finds some value off of this push, they might take a bigger lead, and they do.
So Starburst wiping out 2 members of Ascension. Let's see if they can start to move forward. However, Ascension has built their lead to 14, under 2.5 minutes left. Still plenty of time. And Rainmaker, but what we're seeing is this sloshing machine and Tri-Slosher creating all sorts of problems as Ascension again here, K-Bot. Now with another numbers advantage, they are no longer the dark horse here, it feels like. They are really pushing Starburst to their limit.
Not at all. And then look at the ability to lay down a little bit of ink right up to that Rainmaker and then be able to pick it up again, adding even a few more points to the board. The second half of this map is going to be much slower than the first. Any number of points you can get on the board here is going to matter in the long run. And it's making Starburst squirm so far. They're having a difficult time even finding their way back into the middle of the map. Ascension's doing a great job controlling this map all of the way, especially once they get on top of this bridge, looking at the opponent's base.
Here's Evan doing work with the sloshing machine. Booyah bomb coming out, getting everybody's energy to help out here. Evan trying to advance forward. Rainmaker in possession of Ascension. They've got a 20-52 lead, and they are greedy. They want some more. Here's Ascension trying to take another bite out of this. Moving forward. Ascension trying to go for the dunk. No good. They're denied. 3-2 advantage still, and 9. It just feels like Starburst cannot get comfortable.
No, you've seen them taking fights that they wouldn't normally do, diving on a sloshing machine after you've already been hit by a direct there. Evan staying there means there's more pressure yet to be had, and that's Biscuit going down. That's their forefront player, and that's not going to be the end of it. Everybody else was also able to jump in. Another
splat. It's laundry day here for Evan as he is just cleaning up 9.
And what's stunning there is Evan didn't move. Evan stayed there that entire time, let people jump, and everybody else moved around the position that Evan had already created. What did we say at the start of this? This is a team that has been playing together for some time. They know how to coordinate, and the meta favors what they do. It's a dangerous combination, Jordan.
Ascension trying to snatch a formidable 2-0 lead. They've just got to close it out under 30 seconds left. Brand going down again. Rainmaker in possession of Ascension. They have no thoughts about playing defense. They want to continue to score. It is now 3-2, finally evened out by Starburst, but they are running out of time as Swen now goes down. Ice with that Flingza, trying to buy a little bit of time to get those missiles built up. Trying to avoid an overtime situation here. Rainmaker shield, that gets popped. Starburst with possession. 4-4 on the stage. It is a flurry of ink back and forth, and down goes Starburst and Ascension, rising up to a 2-0 lead. And K-Bot, how about the scrappy underdogs once again landing another haymaker to Starburst?
And that's one of the things here, right? If you can get yourself to an early advantage in the game, especially on Rainmaker or on tower control, all of a sudden you're going to be able to snowball that and be able to play more defensive. You have so many more options as long as you get a large amount more map control. And Ascension was just able to play that perfectly. You saw there at the very end, Starburst was trying to scramble together, find an answer. They were so close to getting denied overtime even, but had it that Rainmaker shield popped just in the nick of time in order to force that overtime. But again, it was too little, too late. There was always someone from Ascension around, and I don't think Starburst was ever able to find the full wipeout on their opposing team. And with the pace of this game, the stealth jumps and super jumps that are coming in, all of a sudden Ascension's going to have plenty of control of the middle of the map, and there's hardly anything Starburst can do.
Clan Blitz is coming up at 9. I want to know what's the difference here right now between Starburst and Ascension. It's not a crazy difference in the loadouts, and you've got a very talented team in Starburst that has won at the highest level before. What are we seeing from Ascension, on top of what K-Bot explained to us, is really made this a 2-0 lead for Ascension, now just one game away from moving to winners finals?
Yeah, I mean, it's coordination, and there's a level of confidence here, and it's the way that they've managed to split up how they want to attack. At the very end of that game, Twig came in from behind. Well, all three members, or I guess it was three, but all four members of Starburst were clumped up together because the other members of Ascension had kind of herded them there. And one thing to be said about the way that the current meta is working here, as strong as Crab Tank is, and it is strong, and as strong as missiles are, there's just a slight period of downtime when you pop them. There's just a little bit of time you have to react to the threat. You do not have time to react to a 52 gal once its wall gets down. You do not have time to react to the Tri-Slosher when it is up and attacking you. And we saw Shinx make several great plays. And like K-Bot said, if that's really what you're looking for here, the main weapons to come through for you, you can super jump in all you want. You don't care how much special meter you lose. You aren't trying to build your special. You are trying to get up and fight and displace. And what did we say at the top of the show? Whatever your plan is in Splatoon 3, it better be quick. And right now, the plans are all coming up in favor of Ascension.
And that's such a good point as we get set for Clan Blitz on Scorch Gorge. It just feels like the consistent pressure is always in the face of Starburst, and that they really can't buy any time for their frontliners to go and do work because their frontliners are having to defend themselves. So we'll see what changes here. Now we see double splash coming out as well too. Very interesting here, Nine. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the double splash, they've gone back to this. That means that Biscuit on the 52 gal had to be specifically for that map, or maybe after the game, Biscuit just not feeling here, rotating out. But it does look like Ascension has also switched over to using some Tenta missiles, so they're going to try to break through in that fashion here. Shinx once again starting the game by taking out a Crab Tank here. Seemingly nothing that this Tri-Slosher cannot do. Once again, it's going to be map control in favor of Ascension. They're going to get the opportunity for the first push, and if this Inkjet finds anybody, and it does, this could get a whole lot worse.
A lot of points going in. Shinx shows you that you gotta always bring a bucket when you go crabbing, and now a 56-100 lead for Ascension to start this thing off. And again, it's all about the start here. K-Bot, you mentioned it, it's what Ascension thrives on.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the thing is, though, of course, 56, you're not going to want to sit on this lead forever, right? You're probably going to want to look to try to make another push of your own. But, of course, you have to try to find that advantage somehow. And right now, perhaps that advantage is even coming out of Shinx. I mean, there are not many players right now playing a Tri-Slosher at all, let alone at this high of a level. Shinx is coming out here as a complete thorn in Starburst's side, getting them down multiple times over. Where will Starburst find their advantage? Looks like they have a few specials that they look to take back control of mid.
That Tri-Slosher trying to be the Pachirisu of our weapon loadouts right now, trying to really make a statement, as it's really been the difference between these two teams. You saw it take care of the crab. Now it's still an opportunity here, though, for Starburst to even this thing up, and they take the lead. A flurry of clams filling the basket as they now have an 11-point lead, and that's exactly the type of counterpunch you want right there, Nine.
Yeah, they did a great job, and you'll notice that they didn't go in to try to fight. They knew that they weren't going to be able to score any more off of it because they didn't have the clams. You saw that Ice had to go very, very far back, and it's a bit of wisdom. If we can't score, there's no point in diving. Let's just hold mid, let's build up our specials, and let the opponent try to come back to us. So that was the deal that they've made here. They might be able to wait out Shinex's special here. If they do, they should be able to get a punish. They do, and it should once again be an opportunity for them to take map and maybe another push.
So you've got 2 specials ready to go for Starburst. They've got the lead. Now it looks like Ascension is the one that's a little frazzled at this point here, K-Bot. As Swen goes down, here's Biscuit in that crab tank, trying to apply a little bit more pressure. And again, another broken barrier. Starburst trying to run away with this one, K-Bot.
And now another crab tank goes down right there. You see why we have 2 Splashmatics on the map. If you can extend the amount of length effectively that crab tank is out, all of a sudden you've got so much more of a range advantage. Ice now throwing in a few more claims to get this down to 19 for Starburst. It looks like Twig was able to come up from behind there to stop that push. But this 19-point mark is going to be a challenge for Ascension to come back from. They have to play this calm and collected like they've been playing earlier. They can't be playing and going for broke here.
2 minutes left. Starburst with the majority of the clams in their possession at this point. However, we've seen Ascension strike quickly before. Can they rally and use that coordination that's helped propel them to a 2-0 lead this time around? You see the Flingza moving forward. Flingza trying to avoid some missiles. Burst Bomb coming in, able to take the shot to the face, get the power clam in, although 3 members go down. That's an expensive basket with nothing to show for, 9.
Yeah, and actually they might have just handed Starburst the tools needed to end this game right away. They have a lot of map and they are going to get that clam for a successful defense. So right now you can see waiting for the opportune time to use this crab tank. If this crab tank finds a couple people and they score both of these, that will be the game and get them back into this. Another Booyah Bomb timed out pretty well to create even more space. Ascension is held well, but that's Shinx down. That's the forefront of their defense gone. Another crab tank rolling through here. It's looking dicey.
You see Bagel kind of playing that anchor position, even with the Splash-O-Matic power clam coming through, tank providing cover. Here's an opportunity, and that is a knockout in Clam Blitz by Starburst. Now it's 2-1 here, K-Bot. Best of 5, Starburst, you got to think they are feeling pretty confident that they can try to steal 2 more games here.
And look, maybe you got to give it a moment for the old gears to rev up for a moment for Starburst.
I know I got it when I wake up.
The second that they start to get things going, the second they start to get jiving again after a little bit of a break in a delay since their first round of the bracket stage, you know, they're going to have a little bit more to play with as they start getting a little bit more coordinated, which is exactly what we were seeing there. The game plan seemed to come together. But you mentioned here as well, especially with some of the Splash-O-Matics playing as the backline, this weapon literally can do it all. With the range that the crab tank provides, it has that range to play that backline anchor role, forcing opponents away. And then after that crab tank is done, dips into the ink with Ninja Squid, swims forward, and surprises the opponent on the front lines as well.
Yeah, and 9, it was really fascinating. That switch to double Splash-O-Matic seemed to really be the difference that Starburst needed, because they no longer were having to play on the back heel. They were the ones pushing forward. They were the one with the old fundamentals of Splatoon getting turf control here, and that's what we saw with those Splash-O-Matics paired with the crab tanks.
Yeah, and it should also be noted here that that was the most wide open map that we've played on thus far in this set. Maybe the middle of Inkblot is wide open, but realistically in tower control, you're worried about what's further on in the map where it all compresses a little bit. And Eel Tail, one of the most narrow and compressed maps in the game, that was always going to favor the way that Ascension wanted to play. Now that it was a more wide open map here, that double crab tank has a little more room to breathe. You have a little bit more time for that slight dead period where your specials are coming up that we talked about earlier to actually activate. The missiles matter a little bit more here. And taking a look at the maps that we have left, it's only the wide maps that are open left. So this might finally be the point where Starburst can stick with this double crab composition and work up from there.
Well, K-Bot, Starburst is going to smile at this next combination. Splat Zones, Flounder Heights. Ascension, they just have to win one more game to go to winners finals. Starburst avoided the sweep. Let's see if they can reverse the favor. They got to get one step closer here. And now, do we see anything different with the loadouts at all, K-Bot, as both these teams try to take game 4?
few changes. It's actually Biscuit on the sloshing machine this time around, but still two Splash-O-Matics, brand switching over there for Starburst. But on the other side, I also want to talk once more. If there's any map that we're seeing more Tri-Slosher, it actually is Splat Zones on Flounder Heights, where you're seeing that Tri-Slosher be able to have a little bit more control over the verticality and over one of these two zones.
Early lead goes to Ascension, 4-point lead, but now they're battling back and forth up top here, and you see Swin on the left-hand side of your map just flinging ink with that Flingza, trying to apply some pressure and just control that first zone. And that's what happens sometimes, Nine. You just sometimes have to cover your own zone until you get that advantage and you find that moment to push forward.
Especially when you have a player like Shinx, again, on that Tri-Slosher like K-Bot said, who spent the last 15 seconds just sharking alongside that wall, waiting to pop up with, again, unreactable double sloshes to take people out there. Biscuit doing the same thing on this end with some precision shooting. But the formula is there, right? If you can keep the opponent pushed back, they will eventually have to move forward to take your zone. That's when the Trapdoor Spider springs up. That's when you get what you want. And so far, it's given them a bit of a lead.
Twig doing a nice job of that splash wall, really shutting down any access for Starburst over that grate into the other zone, and it's allowed Ascension to build a slight lead. They're trying to push to the other zone here, but now it's 3-2 on the map for Starburst. Here's an opportunity, K-Bot.
An opportunity here, but again, it's going to be difficult to wrestle away the opposing zone. We see this so often on two zones maps, where one of these zones are going to be painted in one color and the other one's going to be the opposite. And it forms a little bit more of a stalemate where somebody has to find an angle to step forward. It looks like Starburst has finally found it. Now is a crab tank forward as well, and now all of those bombs getting thrown right at that splash wall, preventing Ascension from coming in. But again, not many points on the board here for Starburst. This one's going to come down to the wire.
Starburst wrestling the lead away. You see Shinx pretty far away, trying to move in with that Tri-Slosher underneath the grate, trying to back up, feeling a little bit of pressure. That's going to give Evan an opportunity here with that sloshing machine and a Booyah Bomb to create some damage, possibly take that zone. But two of their teammates go down, and Starburst able to play some defense and flip that into offense here, Nine.
And I mean, it's such an incredible flow of macro and micro play there. Ice moving up with the Flingzarola to get the punish and take out the sloshing machine there from the Booyah Bomb. Not going down in the process, instead dropping down, and then as soon as Twig gets set up on the other side, they know exactly how to move and punish that without going too deep into the wall. Starburst finally has woken up, are firing on all cylinders, and only 20 ticks away from taking this one.
Starburst trying to even things up, force another game 5. Twig trying to push forward, but it's going to be a little bit of help right there, a little bit of relief as they take one zone, but Starburst trying to fight it back. You see that meter going back and forth. Will it be a huge penalty and some breathing room for Ascension, K-Bot? They desperately needed to wrestle that zone away.
They desperately need it. Now Shinx up the air with the Inkjet. Might be punished for it on the fall and is going to be able to get taken care of by Starburst. Now two members trying to look at Twig. Twig's going to be forced to super jump back to spawn, and Starburst once again has control of the map. Even though Ascension was able to apply that critical penalty to extend this game out, now all of a sudden it's a 3-down situation, and we're going to see the exact same thing we were seeing earlier. This is where the big pushes are made here, as now Starburst is setting up for a lockout.
A tidal wave of purple ink making its way towards the left-hand side of your map. Just look at it, and that tells the story of this game so far. Ascension's going to have to move in quickly and, even more importantly, coordinated together to try and wrestle away this zone. But now it's just 16 seconds away for Starburst. Starburst again claiming the zone. Now it's Ascension trying to make their way forward. Booyah Bomb coming in. Starburst in total control. 3 seconds left, and Starburst will make it 2 straight games to force a game 5 after they take the zones on Flounder Heights. And 9, it really feels like Starburst starting to find their rhythm.
Well, we said earlier, too, that the two maps that play to Ascension are already gone. These are more wide open. You can get a lot of information here simply by looking around the map. There aren't the small avenues for you to swim underneath, so they were going to have opportunities on this map. But the micro level play that they were able to do, the slight adjustments, when Shinx would jump in, not standing in the range where that first slosh would come out, that first slosh plus a little chip damage could have broken a lot of those lockout scenarios, but no, they weren't even getting hit by those. Again, I do think that they've started to wake up. They have the game in the way that they want it here, and Ascension's going to need to find something big as we move on to Game 5.
So our last map will be Brine Springs. It's just a matter of finding out what the game mode is here, K-Bot, and it really feels like the shift for Starburst has been their ability to just push forward and play with a little bit of early aggression. Normally it was Ascension that was stealing the lead, but now it's Starburst that seems to really take advantage of the open space that they're playing with now.
And you talk a little bit more about that early space that they're able to kind of build up here. If they're able to get a Splash-O-Matic looking at an opponent with that with that sloshing machine as well, set up a little bit of crossfire, right, where there's ink coming in from 2 different angles, and all of a sudden things are a lot more difficult to deal with. That'll be exactly what Starburst is looking to do with their front 3 being both splashes and that machine. Here we go with Brine Water, though, incredibly linear. We're heading to splat zones. Expect this one to also be very stally because of just how quick these teams can get back into mid.
One zone, one game to move on to winners finals. Let's see who's got it as both teams approach the middle. 9, any changes at all with their loadouts, or is it same old, same old?
I mean, the big change here, and really the one difference in those last 2 games, Swen no longer trading missiles with Ice with the Flingza Roller. The Charger is back out here. So whether this is a map counter pick or solely because the other stuff wasn't working as well, they've gone with this now. They're going to have the opportunity to make shots. We'll see if it'll be enough.
Starburst with the early 7-point lead. They take the zone back again. 3-1 on the map. It's just Twig and a lone splash wall on the field for Ascension, and you see that timer going down. Ascension gonna have to find a way to push forward as Starburst once again showing that early dominance here, K-Bot.
Yeah, Twig looking for an angle there, but immediately gets called out thanks to the Tenet missiles. They know the position of Twig when those Tenet missiles come out, and now it's 3 down for Ascension all of a sudden. Shinex is the only one up here. By the way, switched off of the Tri-Slosher, now over to the Splash-O-Matic. Probably a good call here. Tri-Slosher's not going to get a lot of work done, but nonetheless, Ascension needs to find a way back in. Looks like they're going to be able to find the cap thanks to this Booyah Bomb, but still, they haven't punished Starburst. Starburst is standing true on the defensive, especially with that grab tank in position. It's going to be difficult to displace these members.
Oh, what an opening salvo coming from Starburst. Huge lead at this point, and really 9. They just continue to keep Ascension in disarray. We don't see that coordination from Ascension that we saw the last couple of games, and again, it's the open map that really seems to change things here.
It is, and let's give some credit to Starburst for another big change that they made. Earlier, Biscuit was on the Splash-O-Matic, and it was Bran on the machine. They have switched it. I know on paper that's the same composition, but with the way these 2 players play the weapon, it is not the same at all. Biscuit very measured, very accurate, getting another splat with 15 seconds. It's all Starburst. They have come alive.
Starburst just 7 seconds away from moving on to winners finals, and just like that, Starburst snatches the broom from Ascension and will go ahead with the reverse sweep, down 2-0 to win 3 straight and move on to winners finals. So another set here goes to 5 games, but we talked about it here, K-Bot. The adaptability is so huge at this level when there's still so many nuances to this game to be discovered here, and we saw that coming from Starburst. Their ability to look at their loadouts and say, hey, something's not working here. We need to make a change, and it pays off with 3 straight wins.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure some of you are probably watching and go, yep, I never doubted them. Knew that was going to happen the entire way through. But in reality, things were looking devastating for Starburst. They did need to make an adjustment, and they found it with their playstyle rather than they found it with, the weapon composition. Now, of course, as Nine was mentioning, we talk about the stages a lot that were played over the course of that. And indeed, I think a lot of the stages did play to the favor a little bit more of Starburst as the map opens up, where the range advantage becomes more prevalent, and things like a pesky Tri-Slosher can't get into your position. All of a sudden, all of those things are going to start to play back to their favor. So well done by Starburst to bring that one back around.
All right, let's check out the bracket before we take another break here, and there it is. Starburst down 2-0, winning 3 straight games in dominant fashion. They will now take on Destiny Bond for an opportunity to punch the first ticket to the Splatoon 3 North American Championship. Don't go anywhere. Winners finals coming up when we take a break during the Splatoon 3 Splatsville Showdown Tournament 2022.
The Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass DLC. Start your engines for 8 courses in Wave 3. Maple Treeway. Rainbow Road. Boo Lake. Berlin Byways. Rock Mountain. Peach Gardens. London Loop. And Merry Mountain. The Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass. 8 courses at a time will release over 6 waves as paid DLC for the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe game. That's 48 courses, zooming in by the end of 2023. Wave 3 launches December 7th on the Nintendo Switch system. Race on these courses at no additional cost with a paid Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack membership. Or purchase the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass DLC on its own.
Whether it's to play your favorite game, to play for school pride, or for the thrill of competition. Play competitively with Play Versus. Visit playvs.com today for more information.
And welcome back to the Splatoon 3 Splatsville Showdown Tournament. Jordan Kent alongside 9 and K-Bot. We've seen 2 winners semis go all the way to Game 5. Now we pull up a chair and get set for winners finals between 2 teams that have had to really ink their way to the top here. A lot of really great games going on. Let's go ahead and check out the bracket here. It'll be a matchup between Destiny Bond and Starburst. And K-Bot, you mentioned Starburst. They've been living at the edge of tomorrow here the last couple of games.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we just saw them wrap up that last set versus Ascension. They took the 3-2 in reverse sweep fashion, going 3 games in a row to knock that one out. But they also, may I remind you, had a nail-biter in their qualifying match to get to this point, taking that set 3-2 versus Sayonara. Sayonara is one of these arguably top 4 teams, might have, had the opportunity to get into the bracket here today, but fell just short because they ran into Starburst right ahead of time. So it'll be interesting. Of course, Starburst has been here, done that before, right? How far will Destiny Bond now be able to push this team that's starting to fully come online? You have to imagine the momentum's playing to Starburst's favor, but we'll see if Destiny Bond can throw a wrench in their plans.
And K-Bot, you mentioned momentum. 9, our very first game. Splat Zones, Brinewater Springs. We saw Starburst take care of business against Ascension in what you called horrifyingly dominant fashion in these last couple of games. Your thoughts on this matchup between Destiny Bond and Starburst as we get set?
Yeah, I think this is going to tell us a lot in terms of the composition that they're playing because, and we talked about this a little bit when we were kind of in backstage, if it does go to Game 5, the winner of Game 4 essentially gets to choose really the home field advantage for Game 5 because they're going to be able to pick whatever mode they want to go to. If Starburst gets that win and it goes to Game 5, you can bet we're going back to Splat Zones later on. So this is going to tell us a lot in terms of what Destiny Bond wants to play on this mode, maybe the most fundamental mode as well. We know they're going to push forward, we know they're going to fight, and sometimes all you need is Splat.
And what we saw here, K-Bot, was the adaptability for Starburst. They went ahead and changed a couple of their compositions, not necessarily the weapons, but who was yielding what, and that's what really changed things for them. That coupled with the open maps, they looked like a completely different team those final 3 games against Ascension.
And 9 emphasized that point, right? The second that you have Biscuit holding a little bit further back with that sloshing machine, just with that pinpoint precision, as opposed to Brand charging forward with it, you're able to see a little bit more come to fruition there. But let's not discount that Destiny Bond might end up changing their weapon composition a little bit, opting for heavy splatling or explosher out of Bliss, and then going back and forth between splatter shots or 10 attacks for 0. Maybe we'll see some more of that variety come out here as Destiny Bond really tries to find a way to break apart this synergy that Starburst is coming through with.
And 9, when you're going from a stage that we saw in Flounder Heights a couple of times with 2 splat zones to a single splat zone here in Brinewater Springs, how does that change the approach to a splat zones matchup?
Yeah, I think the big thing you're looking at is where can a team safely fire on the zone, right? And that's oftentimes what makes the big difference here is, do you have to be vulnerable and next to the zone to paint it? Or can you sit back, turf up maybe a little bit, but still be in a relatively safe zone and ink the zone from there? Of course, Crab Tank throws a wrench in that equation by being all the way back, but that is one of the big differences you'll see, and it's why here in Brinewater teams are so eager to make the big fights, because they know capping the zone is certainly not going to happen by accident.
Well, we mentioned the Splatling for Destiny Bond. It does come out, no changes for Starburst, so now it's a race to the middle, and it's really going to be fascinating here, K-Bot, which weapons will be able to apply that pressure on the zone from afar.
Yeah, exactly. And that heavy splatling, of course, as you mentioned, is probably going to be able to do that. But the one thing that this heavy splatling is not going to like is those 10 missiles on the other side of the map coming out of Ice's Flingzo Roller. Got to be careful for those and watch out just how much space that's going to be able to buy. But hopefully Destiny Bond can start to build up a little bit with their own specials. You see that Ink Strike coming out, as well as the Wavebreaker on top of this zone. Things are very neutral and even to start out.
Destiny Bond wrestles away the zone. They're going to work away that penalty and take the early advantage over Starburst. Now it's just a matter of trying to move forward. First bomb going up, missiles once again coming out, and Starburst will take the zone just like that. And 9, it's 4-2 on the map, a chance for Starburst to really fortify their positioning.
Yeah, you saw there, that was the one time that Destiny Bond thought they had a decent look and tried to push up into Starburst zone, but they were more than willing to give up that little bit of time if it meant that they could spawn and get back to middle safely. So that's always the risk. Yes, you want to push forward and go for the knockout punch when you can, but sometimes it ends up backfiring. They've gone for it again here. Jared found a great position. That's going to be another punishment here, so the worst of the threat is going to be gone, but we're going to see a lot of that over and over as we've already seen it twice.
Destiny Bond, though, taking the lead here. Here comes a Booyah Bomb coming out from Starburst. That's going to help take away the zone here. But again, Destiny Bond, what we're seeing is just their ability to sort of out firepower Starburst at this moment here, K-Bot. But the Crab picking up 3 splats using those pinchers. How about that, K-Bot?
Well done by Bagel. Again, this is the reason why the Crab is so vulnerable. You're so great. You can shoot basically across that entire zone, no matter where your opposing team is coming in from, able to take care of business. And now up here up front is going to get pushed away by the triple ink strike. But of course had to be, because otherwise is going to stick around and do exactly the same thing. Able to find one on top of Jared, and the rest of the team follows up for another wipeout on top of Destiny Bond. Starburst moving forward, and they're not looking to slow down.
The crushing crustacean cavalry for Starburst, really fortifying what they're trying to do here. Just all sorts of pressure against Destiny Bond. It has been very difficult for Destiny Bond to take this back ever since we've seen a couple of wipeouts here. Now just 3 seconds, but hold up, Destiny Bond. One last gasp, not enough though in 9. I think it's pretty clear to see that we saw a couple of moments there with that Crab Tank that really allowed Starburst to just dominate the second half of this game.
Yeah, earlier I said all you need is Splat. I clearly misspoke. All you need is Crab, apparently, because both times that they got the big opening and then the big defense were on the backs of 2 very well-placed Crab Tanks. And I want people to note here, Brand could have used, when they were making that defense, his own Crab Tank very early on. Instead, he gave up a little bit of ground and he waited, and it was because Bagel was very close to another Crab Tank. The only thing worse than 1 Crab Tank is 2. You use 1 Crab Tank to zone it into the other one, and then the other one finishes the job from there. And it's those small bits of coordination that they had set up from the incredible individual play from Bagel that allowed them to follow through with their set play, move on down the checklist, and get themselves game 1.
Yeah, the 2 splashes really paying off now for Starburst ever since they've made that switch. And as we said it before, K-Bot, yes, team coordination is important, but sometimes your superstars have to step up. We saw that with Bagel, the 3 splats, and from that point on, Destiny Bond could never really recover.
And what a play that was, right? Again, having the awareness and having the knowledge to be able to make that play, though, in the first place, is really what sets that up, right? You can't just randomly decide to throw out a Crab Tank and somehow find a way to get 3 of the members of the opposing team. You really have to be deliberate in terms of your timing and your positioning when Bagel's setting that up. But of course, he was exactly in that case, opening up the entire map. And that's one of the reasons why now in Splatoon 3, we get the wipeout notification. Right? Anytime that appears, it is so critical and pivotal in the game. And of course, anytime you can pull up with a play like that, it'll be good news for your teammates.
We are getting set for tower control here, but now when you look at tower control, and we just got word that it'll be on Eeltail Alley, now it's one of those narrower maps here, 9, that we've seen Starburst struggle on. What's the counter move if you're Destiny Bond, if you want to try and take this next game?
Yeah, I think what Zero and Jared end up picking here is going to be huge, right? We've seen Zero play 3 different weapons at this point and certainly could pull out a 4th if necessary. Jared's another one of those frontline flex specialists who has played a number of different weapons here. We saw the 52 gal be absolutely devastating on this map from Twig in the last set, and we know that in the earlier set that we saw, Biscuit also switched over to it as well. If they opt going 52 gal here, it's going to give them some opportunities for some sustained pushes. But I'm really curious if Zero is going to stick with the splatter shot and make use of that Trizuka. This is another map, because it's so narrow, you can really start to stagger, zone the opponents together, and take a couple of them out in one fell swoop. And as we said in the Ascension set, immediacy is the way that you get around this double crab composition.
We'll see if they can navigate it. It's tower control. The mode is different, but the method of operation for Starburst, the double crab, it has been dominant ever since they switched to it. Can they continue to scurry their way to another game? We'll find out here. Destiny Bond, the adjustment. Now we see 2 sloshing machines here, K-Bot.
Two sloshing machine coming out of Destiny Bond. We saw this look from them a little bit earlier, but even still, this is one of those stronger weapons, right? And with the amount of verticality and all of the different walls that are here on Eeltail Alley, this sloshing machine can actually do quite a decent bit of work overall. And it looks like starting to get a little bit of advantage here for Destiny Bond as they're able to have the squid advantage in mid.
Already first checkpoint reached by Destiny Bond, barely trying to get by it. No luck there as you see the Booyah Bomb come out. 3 checkpoints here on Eeltail Alley. Here's another Bagel Crab special coming your way here. And now we see Starburst with an opportunity here, 9. They had 4-2 on the map. Here's their push.
Yep, and Bagel's in a really good position, opting not to immediately drop down. They want Ice to be the person back on the tower there. And you see, again, the patience here by Starburst there. They're trying to wait for the members of Destiny Bond to jump on them and see if they can get some value. They are going to be able to get 2 down, and if I'm counting correctly, the super jump should be coming back here very shortly. So they should have an advantage. Great placement by Juan there to slow this down a little bit. That was very dangerous. They had the big advantage. But I would call that a successful defense from Destiny Bond, not even giving up that second checkpoint, which really is scary on this map and mode.
Really good point, 9. You saw Juan really just get to a terrific position to pick up that splat. Now it's 4-3 Destiny Bond, and they're making their way towards the checkpoint, trying to clear through that. Crab on the map here right now for Starburst. Destiny Bond through that checkpoint, but here comes some Tenta missiles, K-Bot, and that'll certainly clear the tower here shortly.
Watch just how much of an impact these 10 missiles have. 2 members back away from the tower, but actually in order for Starburst fully capitalizing, and now a beautiful Trizuka shot is able to take care of Ice from 0, but it's still 2 down for Destiny Bond. Neither team really had a lot of space, and it came down to the long-range specials. Turns out the Crab Tank still just as good on the defensive side as well, and things are still dead even here as we're getting down to the halfway point in this game.
Bagel with the burst bomb right across home plate. That gets up a splat at this point, and now Destiny Bond with a 4-point lead. It's on Starburst to push it forward here, and what we've seen so far from Destiny Bond, they do an excellent job here, 9, of really getting to the right spots when it's time to hold down the fort.
Yeah, and you can see now a very preemptive Crab Tank here. You saw last time Bagel was waiting for them to come on the attack and punish from there. This time, not waiting whatsoever. They try to use the specials to engage, and Destiny Bond responding very well. Love the way that Zero backs up there, knowing the Crab Tank can come up and get the punishment and finish the job. So you see Starburst try to adjust. Destiny Bond said, we're 1 step ahead of you, and now they have the opportunity to push as well as more trades come through.
Yeah, you see the trade with Bagel and the Tenta missiles come out, but that's 3-1 advantage for Starburst and an opportunity as the tower resets to the middle. Under 2 minutes left to play. Here's Biscuit, Fizzy Bomb in hand, trying to go toe-to-toe with one of those burst bombs. Now it's Ice on the tower. K-Bot, they're moving forward. They're getting to the second checkpoint. They've taken the lead.
Taking the lead here, Destiny Bond really wants to try to find a way to make sure that this second point is cleared, but it is going to be here now. Finally comes through. After this, that's going to be the wipeout here for Starburst. They're storming forward to this 3rd checkpoint here all the same. Biscuit's starting to move forward a little bit more, and it looks like the splash on the other side, though, is going to get taken out. Teamwork starting to come through for Destiny Bond as they collapse around this tower to try to stop this push. Still 2v2, now looks like 2v1. Biscuit might be able to hold this, buy a little bit more time, wait for the jumps to come in. Booyah Bomb, now Biscuit dissuaded, but 15, excellently done by Starburst.
Yeah, and you really stunned. Excellent use of the Tenta missiles on the tower by Ice way back there to burst through there, and really Ice's ability to continue to stay alive here, 9, and threaten and displace those Tenta missiles has been the difference.
It is, because look at how difficult it is to actually make meaningful progress. We've talked so much about how quickly you have to move up. It's not enough for you to simply dissuade the opponents and move them away. At some point, you have to close the deal and send them back to spawn. If you want any of these pushes to last, you know that Biscuit is going to be sharking around and throwing bombs, and eventually you're going to have to deal with one of these crabs. So Zero in an interesting position here. They should be able to punish Bran and Do. This might be the catalyst for their final push, but they're really only going to get one more look at this.
Destiny Bond is going to have to hustle. Under 20 seconds left. They're moving forward. Trizuka coming out. Can't pick up anybody quite yet. Zero finally gets Ice. That'll be a huge pickup. That takes care of their backliner. 10 seconds left. Second checkpoint, but a lot of work to do for Destiny Bond. Starburst trying to build an insurmountable, well, nearly insurmountable 2-0 lead. Checkpoint moving forward. Overtime is here. Burst Bomb coming down. Destiny Bond getting closer. Destiny Bond on the final checkpoint. They got to hustle and get back on the tower. 10 seconds left for Destiny Bond. Oh, and it's a wipeout at the worst time ever. Unbelievable. 9. What did we just see?
I think Ice got all of them. I don't think there was
Ice,
anybody.
you gotta share the clip. Share the clip, Ice. You gotta share it.
They had everything going for them there. Zero was near the tower. They had somebody on tower, and I think that they had another special at use. And once they got past that checkpoint, it was a hop, skip, and jump to their lead. That is unbelievable. The Tenta missiles. What else are you gonna say? The only special in the game that could have achieved that there.
And that's what we saw from Ice, and that really dictated this game here. Starburst takes a 2-0 lead now in this best of 5. It was the Tenta missiles, and really when Starburst had luck, or when Starburst was at a disadvantage, it was when Ice was down. We saw that push from Destiny Bond, but Ice able to spawn, but also K-Bond, the ability to build up the special just in time for the huge defensive play, maybe the most important one we've seen all day today.
And look, that's one of the reasons why Starburst is consistently at the top. They've had this level of experience where they come so close in these last second clutch moments so many times, and they'll continue to keep doing it, right? The more experience that you have at this high of a level is really going to be most what you can rely on when you're talking psychologically for these players. It's going to be these high pressure moments when those overtime sirens are blaring that you've got to come up with the right play, and Ice finds it there, charging those Tenta missiles, not being afraid to pop them immediately, clearing off the members of Destiny Bond there. And again, it comes down to the experience at this level. You have to be calm, cool, and collected, and Starburst almost certainly is, or they wouldn't have reverse swept the last set and they wouldn't have taken that game.
What's impressive, 9, is that Starburst gets the victory in one of those narrow maps. Clam Blitz is coming up next. It'll be fascinating to see what map will be chosen, because we've seen Starburst dominant in those wide open maps, and then things are a little bit more close in those narrow ones. But it really feels like for Starburst, they continue to just find this groove of getting off to these good starts. And now as we get to Scorch Gorge, an open map opportunity for Starburst.
Yeah, we saw how this looked against Ascension, and I know that Destiny Bond is a different team, but this was a scenario where once it went to Clan Blitz, Destiny Bond didn't have a correct answer. All they had was slightly less bad answers, because you are going to have to go to one of the wide open maps here, and you're going to have to play on a mode where you can control the pace and slow it down a little bit more, and that plays into what Starburst is wanting to do with their comp. So again, Destiny Bond, I guess your takeaway is you really did have that game at the end. You did everything right. Zero hits the crazy Trizuka shot onto Ice to give them the opportunity. And then right at the end, a little misplay here, a zig where you should have zagged, changes the entire complexity of this set. They're going to have to find some answers very quick. They have the skill, but will they have the mental wherewithal and the fortitude to pull it together after such a heartbreaking loss?
Yeah, that's really going to be the biggest question. Now, it is double elimination, so they'll have a chance to work their way through losers finals if they fall this game. But we've seen the last 2 winner semis go to 5 games. We've seen the fact that Destiny Bond has threatened in this game too. So we'll see what happens. Clam Blitz, Scorch Gorge, a chance for a Starburst sweep to claim our first entry into the Splatoon 3 North American Championship. Or will Destiny Bond hang on and continue to push this set? Both teams screaming towards the middle of the map. No difference here at this point, but really, K-Bot, what stands out is just how quickly those initial missiles get built up for Starburst that allows them with that displacement early on.
Yep, and already another crab here, already used. Again, utilizing this space, utilizing these specials to displace their opponents and trying to find an angle to take care of most of the middle of the map, because that's where all the clams are right now. You have to find a way to move their way in there and pick up all these clams to start to get a push rolling, and it's exactly what Starburst has done with their early special advantage, despite not getting that many splats.
Here's Bliss holding down the back line right now. Has a Booyah Bomb ready to go. Throwing a few more Fizzy Bombs at this point. Bliss just hanging out. You see a couple of teammates super jumping near Blitz at this point, so nobody's really been the aggression, but you have a power clam coming. Here's Brand trying to clear some space. Brand Looks like they have a little bit of a runway, but waiting for some reinforcements or trying to build up one more crab, it looks like here, 9.
Yep, and again, this is the presence of mind. We saw it at the end of that Ascension set where Brand could have popped Crab early, instead wanted to wait for the opportunity to make a bigger, truly knockout push. Now Biscuit's here, now the Tenta missiles are firing. This is the situation they wanted to set up. Will the patience be paid out? That's one down. Ice looks to have a pretty easy path up here. The last 2 members are pushed back, and this is what patience and waiting for the best scenario for your team will get to you. This is a much bigger push than if Brand had simply popped it earlier. 65, Ice could maybe take it further, gets a nice splat there, might be able to get a second, but it does appear the push done for now. Given how poorly that could have gone, I'd say that's almost a victory for Destiny Bond.
Yeah, Destiny Bond doing a fine job of not letting things just slip away at that moment. Another solid defensive stop from them. Now the challenge here, K-Bot, is how do they play a little bit of offense? It feels like they have just been retreating this entire game so far, but maybe some coordinated specials will do the job. But so far, Starburst, they're really holding down the fort by their basket at the moment.
You talk about coordinated specials, this Booyah Bomb as well is going to be so impactful if they can capitalize on moving forward along with it. That Booyah Bomb come out, it didn't look like there was a lot of members of Destiny Bond actually coming in, but now Killer Whale 5-1, Booyah Bomb coming out here as well. Perhaps there's a path painted for Destiny Bond to start getting into this barrier, but they don't have any power claims to their name right now, and it looks like the push is going to fall apart, even if it comes close. Bliss goes up in the air with another Booyah Bomb, throwing this down, trying to stall this out, but again, no power claims to their name. Finally, a jump is going to come in here for Destiny Bond. We'll see how many more they can get on the board.
Already, basket getting open for Destiny Bond. A chance to take the lead. A couple more clams going in. They're 2 away from tying things up. 1 more away from taking the lead with just over 2 minutes left. Can they get 1 more in? Neither team at this point was really seceding a lot of ground, but now it's Destiny Bond that has screamed with the lead here. And now, 9, does this change your approach with 2 minutes left when you've got this type of lead?
I think it has to here. The way that you've played it and the way you use your specials to get that lead is a big deal. And actually, an incredibly timely Booyah Bomb might give Jared the opportunity to take this even further. Yes, both of them will go down. And this is the important thing, as Biscuit actually shuts down everything I was about to say. Even if the scoring threat is not there, as long as you keep pressure on the opponent, they have to deal with your pressure before they can do anything on the offensive side. So Biscuit getting those 2 shots, very quickly put that to bed. It's going to give them an opportunity to make a counter push. Both machines down, and holy cow, this is turning in a hurry.
Yeah, you saw Juan get sacked by that Booyah Bomb. Perfectly placed, a little bit of premonition there. And then how about the splat on Jared K-Bot? It's crab on crab. Which crustacean's going to hang in there? That's another critical splat. Starburst mopping up the floor and opening up a runway here to fill the basket, K-Bot.
It's the teamwork, it's the synergy. They're all picking up one target at a time. Someone goes, hey, I want to go for this one, and they take out 1 splat at a time. Now, Booyah Bomb continues forward. Ice has a power clam, is able to throw that in. All of a sudden, it's 15 left to go here for Starburst. They are sitting very comfortable, and all they've got to do is make it so the Destiny Bond can't turn the corner. But again, we saw them do it earlier with a few well-placed Booyah Bombs. Destiny Bond can do this. We'll see if they can come back.
And 9, that's going to be the challenge for Destiny Bond. You need multiple power clams potentially, but they're going to get a chance to approach the basket. They got to take down a few more members. Crab coming out. You see Zero with that power clam in tow. Utilizes the crab, has to try and move forward. You see some purple ink coming in. Finally gets to the basket, able to pick up a splat. Now it's 3-2 advantage. Can Destiny Bond use their numbers? They're moving forward. Now it's 3-1. Here's a chance to take the lead. 9, how about this push towards the end?
They need 4 more. 2 more will do it. 1 more will now do it. Bliss tossing it up for Zero. Zero's not going to get there. Tossed it forward and tried to use the Booyah Bomb, but it's going to be a wipeout. No one is going to be able to jump in. And I kid you not, folks, if that Booyah Bomb had landed a little bit earlier, if they had not taken Zero out that quickly, Zero was going to be able to use that Booyah Bomb as a smoke screen to swing forward and get that last clam in the basket. Folks, these last 2 games, I know this is a 3-0. I know you all don't like it when we say it was a close 3-0, but that was an unbelievable ending to Game 3 after an unbelievable Game 2. My goodness, some great Splatoon being played today.
It goes to show you, K-Bot, it's just a matter of a couple of plays here and there. A couple of drops of ink a little bit further, a little bit later, that can win these games. We saw Ice with a clutch play defensively Game 2, and again, another clutch defensive play. They get a 1-point victory, does Starburst. Let's go ahead, Check out the bracket. Congratulations to Starburst. They are your first winners, earning a trip to the Splatoon 3 North American Championship, so a familiar face will get a chance to square off against some of the nation's best. That will now bring up next the first round of loser semis, DNA versus Ascension. So don't go anywhere. There's still one more spot to fill as we continue along on the Splatoon 3 Splatsville Showdown tournament.
Why, hello there, sweetie. You can call me Gram Grams. I start my mornings with piping hot tea and ice cold domination in this here Nintendo Switch sports game. I just ranked up in survival bowling, so you know I'm ready to serve, turkey. For those of you less seasoned, survival bowling in Nintendo Switch Sports is online with 16 competitors. Get a top score and we reduce our competition. Smooth like gravy, baby.
Awesome.
Try and learn from the replay, dear. Final round. I can taste victory. These two look tough, but I'm perfectly cooked. And I look good because these are all the outfits I've collected dominating y'all. Surprised? You shouldn't be. This is Graham's game. I got the stuff. Do you, turkey? Nintendo Switch Sports. Available now. Rated everyone 10 and up.
And welcome back to the Splatoon 3 Splatsville Showdown Tournament. Jordan Kent alongside Nine and K-Bot, and even though it's chill season in Splatsville, the action has been heating up. We just saw our first team make their way to the Splatoon 3 North American Championship, and that was Starburst, courtesy of 3-0 sweep. Now we go to loser semis, and a chance to check back in with DNA taking on Ascension. And this will be a really nice matchup here, K-Bot, because you feel like both these teams, even though they got dropped in the first semifinal round, they bring a lot to the table, and this is certainly going to be another epic battle.
Yeah, I mean, with both the semifinals going to all 5 games, and each one of those individual games oftentimes getting fought tooth and nail back and forth, DNA versus Ascension is bound to be a really good one. I think I was even underrating Ascension heading into the bracket today, thinking like, all right, well, probably not going to put up too much of a fight versus Starburst, but they certainly did, especially early on. Starburst looking like they were struggling to find their footing, and I think with some of the members of Ascension here, especially we saw Shitx on that Tri-Slosher, these weapons that we don't see played very much can be a little bit surprising to opponents if they're not expecting those things to get caught out. So that's what I'm looking for here, is how are these, special weapon picks going to try to mix things up?
Let's go ahead and check out the rules one more time again here. It's double elimination, best of 5. Higher seed will choose the mode, lower seed will choose the stage. Winning team will choose the mode, losing team will choose the stage, so keep an eye out for that if we go 5 games. They're your game modes: Clan Blitz, Tower Control, Splat Zones, and Rainmaker. A mode cannot be chosen more than 2 times during the match. And of course, our map list here: 9 Scorch Gorge, Eeltail Alley, Inkblot Art Academy, Flounder Heights, and Brinewater Springs. Some of these maps a little bit more open than the others.
Yeah, it's actually an interesting map list in the sense that you can see big swings like we saw in the Starburst versus Ascension set, simply because of the breadth of different styles and ways that you can attack these maps and the range playing better on one map than the other. But I think that that's also enjoyable. If you have a comp that plays a little better on some of those, you deserve to be advantaged in those games. So like K-Bot said, I'll be very intrigued to see which weapons come out of which players. We've seen a little bit of versatility from both of these teams, and it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever if these teams play a game on one map and then as soon as we get into the counter pick system, drastically change up the game plan.
Well, we'll have Tower Control as our very first mode on Eeltail Alley. We've seen this a couple times now here. Narrow map here, K-Bot, which really allows teams to push forward, and you've got to make sure that you have so much coordination on those pushes, because it's really easy for the other team to take advantage of you if you're bunched up.
Yeah, absolutely the case. But the one thing that'll actually allow you to get a little more bunched up is the 52 gal with that splash wall, which is what DNA's been running so far this tournament, actually opting for 2 52 gals as opposed to even things like the splash for the grab tank or something of that nature. So actually having the ability to control some of these tight corridors will be exactly what might actually favor DNA a little bit in this map. We'll see what the answer is coming out from Ascension here, but nonetheless, watching these 52 gals play should be incredibly interesting, because that's been the staple of the DNA composition so far.
And as you said, Nine, those 52 gals, they've got to win the one-on-ones. That's how DNA was able to push things to a Game 5 against Destiny Bond. It's because those 2 frontline 52 gals were winning the one-on-ones. That's going to put a lot of pressure on Ascension as far as dealing with such aggressive play.
Absolutely, and it should be noted here, we have 2 of the very best 52 gal mains, true 52 gal mains from Splatoon 2 in Synapse and Twig. These might have been the 2 highest rated pure 52 gal mains for really the breadth of the final portion of the game here. So to see them being able to play that weapon against each other should be a treat. When 2 52 gals get their walls out, firing at each other, stuff starts to get really, really weird, and I expect that we're going to see that many, many times with the comps these teams are rolling with.
And again, with Tower Control, it's that ability to not only push the tower forward, but you got to play defense at the right times. And we've been seeing some teams really do a nice job, K-Bot, of not giving up too much ground and timing up those specials. It really feels like when you utilize those, plays a huge role in being able to stop the other team's momentum.
For those of you that might just be joining us that aren't quite new to this whole Splatoon 3 thing, the one thing to look out for is just how much of one team's color is around the tower. oftentimes that'll tell you which direction the tower is going to go, even if it's not actually moving at that moment in time, right? You see a lot of purple ink around the tower, and the purple team is the one that's on the offensive. You have to imagine that tower is going to start moving to their favor a little bit more. But on the defensive side, if there's more yellow ink around and it's on their side of the map, the push will probably stop.
There you have it, the 104 gal, basically, for DNA. They're rolling with that. They're getting it done. They're moving forward, and they're going to take the fight to them. And then, of course, you've got the Tri-Slosher for Ascension. That really has been one of the surprise picks so far, so this should be a really fun matchup. Already, you see the Killer Whale 5.1 coming out. That picks up a splat there for DNA, and they're moving forward. But their backliner goes down here, 9, and that should make things interesting for one Ascension on the map.
Yeah, the other interesting thing about the way these two teams play is they're the two teams that have true E-leader mains on their squad as well. Swen actually got a really important shot that started this push. I know we got to see maybe the follow-up there from Shinx here, but it all started with that very first shot. And this is where it gets scary. Swen can see absolutely everything. They've got another range special, and they've got the added protection as well from the Wavebreaker. Twig already moving up. Zeke holding ground here, but holding ground might be all that can be done. Up move Shinx, no wasted time whatsoever. Just one more checkpoint. Swen hits a 6 shot, can't get the other. They're trying to get Twig, and they do. Swen will continue to ride the tower here with just a few points left and another wipeout. Ascension firmly putting their stamp on the start of this set.
Ascension takes the lead and runs away with it, and you saw one of the critical plays there, K-Bot. Swin able to just stay alive and dance around that tower until they were able to get some reinforcements. That right there allowed them to close things out with that knockout punch, and really for Ascension, just their ability to open up the sight lines for their E-leader and then push forward and apply that one-on-one pressure.
Yeah, I mean, if the E-leader doesn't have to worry about constantly getting challenged, again, it's got a decent amount of that yellow ink around it, all of a sudden, it's going to have a field day with those sight lines. Other thing I want to call out, though, Evan was doing a considerable amount of work on the sloshing machine on the front lines for Ascension as well, continuing to build out that space, allowing for there to be this buffer of ink between DNA and where that tower is and where Swen was standing. So fantastic stuff to Ascension, and really exactly what you wanted to do, exactly what I laid out there a moment ago. We'll have to see if there are any adjustments, because so far I don't feel like we've actually seen a lot of composition mix-ups from DNA, but something might have to change here unless you're relying on the stages to do the job for you.
Well, it's Rainmaker coming up next, and it feels like, 9, that Tri-Slosher had its way with the 52 gals at this point, because you would think they would be winning a lot of those one-on-one matchups with another backliner on the tower, but we'll see what DNA decides to do. It's going to be Rainmaker, Inkblot, Art Academy. We've seen this before. What are these teams trying to keep in mind this map and mode?
Yeah, this was the one where DNA got that very nail-biting victory over Destiny Bond. They got the really early push there and then set up their double wall composition to slow the pace of the game down. Simply sit back, force the opponent to come to them, and when needed, be willing to jump out and give up a push if it means keeping more of your people up in a relevant part of the map. The thing that I will be most interested to see, we saw on Eel Tail, once you get pushed back, it can get a little rough. There are some avenues to attack here once you get up on the opponent's side of the map. And this should be the opportunity for DNA to play the style of game they want, because you can shark your attackers up into the good positions. You can create pincers and take odd angles because of simply how much room there is to move once you get on your opponent's plat. So if there was ever a counterpick map and mode for your comp to work, this would have to be it.
And obviously the map selection coming from DNA, so we'll see if this plays to their favor here, K-Bot, because right now it just feels like with Ascension, we saw them take this lead, and then again their coordination of just being able to push forward and be able to create opportunities for the E-leader was huge, and just being able to go and reinforce and give them helps with the super jump in time played a big role in their victory.
Yeah, it absolutely did. Now, the other thing here as well, you mentioned 9 thinks that, DNA wants to actually, this is going to play to their favor. But there are also a lot of sight lines here for the E-leader to actually have a lot of value. Now, that admittedly, we're seeing E-leaders on both sides of the map right now. That's another point to the camp of Ascension right now as well. So, again, going to be interesting to watch how this one entirely comes together. But Rainmaker coming out here, watch for, again, watch their feet. Watch for who has ink control around the objective.
Ascension, DNA, no changes for DNA here, 9, as far as the 52 gals, although it looks like you do have A little bit of an opportunity here for Ascension at the beginning as they go ahead and pick up the early splat. And here's Helix. He's feeling a little bit of pressure as we see Shiny back up.
Yeah, no, this was a big gamble they took. You saw that they pushed Helix, which is their charger, close to where the opponent was coming out. They were banking on the fact that they would be able to get there quicker and set up a pincer attack. Instead, the opposite happened. Shinx just said, oh, cool, here's a lot of room. I'm going to swim through. And here's two members, one of which who can't fight me and one of which who is not fighting me. Great job. Great way to seize the initiative, although DNA has at least slowed things down for the time being and a solid defensive stand.
Early lead for Ascension, plenty of time left as another Splat 4-2 advantage on the map for Ascension, and here they come. Here's that tidal wave that starts to happen once Ascension gets a lead here, K-Bot.
Ascension just feel like they're moving around so much faster. They're able to find advantages and they're able to dodge anything that their opponents have coming at them. But the one thing you can't dodge is a potential ink back that's sitting right on top of the ramp that you want to take that Rainmaker. Well done to lock things down for DNA. It looks like they're going to get the first checkpoint off of this, but they've still got a long way to go to get this down to the 33-point mark.
Just starting to flip it and reverse it did DNA. You saw how quickly they're able to get past that first checkpoint. Now trying to pick up a few splats, get the numbers advantage. They're down 4-3. They have the Rainmaker trying to retreat just a little bit. You want to make sure you're very coordinated here, 9, because right now Ascension's got the upper hand and the lead to play with.
Yeah, it really would be a shame if they gave up this push attempt without getting more points on it. They haven't been able to get rid of Twig here, but they do have the ink back out, and they're going to try to swim forward here and are actually going to take the slowest push to 28 I've ever seen. They only have one up. It is one of the 52 gals who did try to be cheeky and fight it out a little bit there. Meanwhile, the other Synapse is still up on top. Hold on. I don't think they know. Now they finally called it out there. Someone noted it here, and yeah, put that one to bed before it could get nasty. That one could have gotten ugly in a hurry, but great job again by DNA. They just won't quit.
And you see Swin with that ink back ready to go, able to finally push DNA out of their base. Now it's Ascension trying to take the lead back. They don't have to worry about the checkpoint. You see the ink jet providing a little bit of cover for Swin. Swin making sure they take their time. You have the ink wall trying to go against the competing ink wall. You see a member of DNA drop down. Now it's 4-2 advantage for DNA, so really a difficult spot here for Swin. Moving to the left now, going up the ramp here, and K-Bot just trying to stay alive, but can't before any reinforcements come in. DNA will take possession on the pitch once again.
Yeah, and well done to the defense, right, for DNA. We were talking a little bit about this earlier, but if you can get on that upper left portion, looking right down that ramp to try to figure out where the opposing team's coming in from, trying to make sure that they can't get around that corner, you're going to have a lot better of a time. And right now, it looks like there's not any of these long-range global displacing specials. There's no 10 missiles on the map right now for either side, and it's going to allow for these trades to continue happening here in the middle of the map, mostly uninterrupted, where it's just going to be these firefights as these teams are going at each other's throats.
Okay, 4-1 for a moment for DNA. Can they take advantage of the opportunity? You've got the Rainmaker, a bit of a funky spot here. No real help coming down here to burst it. Seems like they might just let this thing sit down and wait until they get some push. And 9, DNA unable to take advantage of their numbers there.
No, that was a very cheeky way. I love what Helix tried to do there. For those of you who don't know, if you throw a bomb off the side of the Rainmaker shield, it treats it as full damage and an instant explosion. If Helix been able to swim forward a little bit further, they might have actually been able to get that member in a fight that would never favor a charger in normal circumstances. So if you're wondering why they waited and then jumped out, that is why. But you bring up a good point, Jordan. It seems like now that they've got the lead, DNA trying not to make the big mistake. One of the interesting things about this map is if you manage to push it onto your opponents or near their pedestal, they can actually drop it down and start their push a little bit faster simply because of the uninkable surface.
And right now, Ascension hanging on to this Rainmaker. They're trying to make their way a little bit closer. It resets to the middle, so that'll make it more of a favorable position for them to regain possession. But down go a couple of members of Ascension, and now they are getting hard-pressed at this moment as we see, once again, DNA take advantage. You've got 2 specials ready to go on the floor, and K-Bot, at this point, if you're DNA, it sounds like you just want to make sure you do not give up control of that Rainmaker.
Absolutely the case. I mean, your opponents have to go from the middle of the map all the way down to the 28-point mark. And look at this. Zeke, watching this Rainmaker like a hawk, immediately is able to take it out. DNA still has control over the area. And now there's the 3 down. Twig goes down to follow. And DNA cleans up the middle of the map to take that second game.
So DNA will even things up at 1 game apiece, courtesy a late push, as 9, you called it the slowest push to 28 ever, but it's just enough to take game number 2. And so what we saw was a matchup where there weren't a lot of displacement specialists, as you pointed out. It just came down to some of those one-on-one 2v1s and enough trades going the way for DNA that allowed them to make that one solo push that they needed to get the win.
Yeah, and I was very impressed at how well they played defense after the fact. There were a lot of opportunities where I think lesser teams would have got a little bit too fight happy, would have seen that the Rainmaker was there, thought maybe I can get to it and trade myself for the Rainmaker there, slow the opponent down. But oftentimes that's what these teams are hoping for. It's what they're banking on. You're never too far away from a defender of the Rainmaker when you play at this level. It's just how these games go. And again, a big credit to DNA. That was a rough opening for them. There were 2 big pushes that they seeded almost immediately to stabilize, make the most of their one push that they got, and then play defense afterwards. We don't have to worry about the fortitude with this squad.
No, and we saw that K-Bot. There was a 4-1 advantage at one point, and they chose not to burst the Rainmaker because it was in such an odd spot. So you look at the defensive shift for them. Now we go to Splat Zones. DNA, those 252 gals, how do you think those are going to work out in Splat Zones? And look at the composition, what they bring to the table, where their sub-weapons aren't really great at inking, but give them some opportunities to get some one-on-one pickoffs.
Well, that's the thing about Splat Zones in Splatoon 3, is that it is so incredibly lockout heavy. And what we mean by that is that if you're able to push forward ahead of the zone, you can actually make it so that the enemy team has no real chance of actually finding a way or an angle to get back into those zones. So if these 52 gals get ahead of the zone, they'll likely be able to make it so that there are just fewer options for Ascension to find a way back in. But we just got word that it's going to be on Flounder Heights here. Those 52 gals not going to have as much of a fun time as I'd have to imagine, or it's not going to be as linear as you might expect because of the amount of ways that you can actually make it up to those zones.
And that's what's interesting, 9. Really, if you want to get the opposing zone, it's your ink wall on that uninkable grate in between, unless you want to go deep into enemy territory. At that point, yeah, you might be able to win some one-on-ones, but it's going to make yourself in a very difficult situation because you're going to be sitting usually in 1v2s, 1v3s versus the safety of your own side of the map.
Yeah, it's an interesting part, and I think one of the other things here that plays to what Ascension is trying to do is we saw in the last set they had a game plan. They wanted to get Shinx just below that grading to pop up once the opponent popped their specials, but the one thing here is that this, again, isn't as much about their specials. We've talked about how strong the Killer Whale 5.1 is on narrow maps where there's one objective to fire it at, and that's the reason why people go Splat Zones, is because they don't want that exact scenario. So I would not be surprised if there was any scenario that would get DNA to switch off of their double 52 gal. It would be this, solely because of the things that we've talked about, and solely because I believe that Ascension has the stronger look on this map and mode.
And that's what we saw. These open maps sometimes can give Ascension an advantage, but that wasn't the case last time. DNA was able to come back. So you look at then locking out here on Flounder Heights. As we mentioned, it's a little bit difficult to do here, K-Bot, because there's so many different ways you can approach the zone. If you are on defense, what are you looking to do once you get the lead here?
You start getting the lead, and you're starting to build that up. You're looking to drop down in the opponent's base, exactly like we saw Destiny Bond do in Game 1 against DNA. We saw that in Game 1 earlier today. We'll see if one of these two teams can replicate it. DNA, though, holding true with these double 52 gals. We'll see if it pans out for them.
No change in the composition for either team. Ascension narrowly lost to DNA last game. Both these teams trying to find their way into losers finals. They went 5 games in winners semis, but who will be able to close things out and step one step closer to playing in the Splatoon 3 North American Championship? Already 4-2 on the map here, DNA. Some nice work by DNA to get out to this early lead here, 9.
Yeah, and this was the one scenario, K-Bot laid it out perfectly, where suddenly double 52 gal looks pretty unbeatable here. How in the world do you clear this space out? If you want to have any sort of opportunity to push back in, you have to at least be able to get to the apartment building walls. But you know that the 52 gals are there for that exact reason. fighting. Zeke moving up, follow up there. 40 ticks on the clock already, and there has not been a trace of a fight near the zone.
And DNA looks like they're going to run away with this one. Ascension really just struggling to get up there. You see Evan with the Booyah Bomb ready to go, but there's a lot of ground to ink. Here comes the Booyah Bomb, you imagine, towards the other zone on your left. Fires it a little short, though, rather than putting that pressure on Helix. Interesting move there, K-Bot.
Yeah, I was looking for the enemy team rather than the zone itself. Not trying to cap it because realized that probably wasn't going to do that himself on that sloshing machine, and trying to buy a bit more time for the jumps to come in. Now you see Shinex in position, looking to try to move forward, finds a trade onto opponent. Evan trying to team up with Twig here, trying to collapse around Synapse, and now another trade happens, but still the zones haven't been capped. Ascension needs to find a way to cap both of these and force a penalty. Otherwise, this could be catastrophic.
You see Swen at the bottom of your screen still able to ink that zone on the left. However, it is 3-1. DNA still hasn't claimed the zone. They finally do. And now just 10 seconds away, there's a lot of ground to cover for Ascension. It's just a matter of they won't even have enough time to get there as DNA decisively takes game 3, and they now have a 2-1 advantage over Ascension. 9. That was like clockwork.
It was like clockwork. And one thing that is so true about most Splatoon 3 maps, and we've kind of alluded to this anyway. Offense being stronger than defense from a map design standpoint. And you don't have to look any further than the influence that those two E-leaders had over the match. Because of the position that Helix could get to, you could watch all of the opponents spawn. You could watch if they're going left, you could watch if they're going right. Meanwhile, poor Swen, who is a fine charger, this is not a dig at Swen. What was Swen supposed to do there? You have to shoot upwards. It's not a great angle. You know that the opposing E-leader can see where you're at, and you aren't going to be able to actually affect the fight that is going on below you solely because of the angles. So once they got that big push, yes, there was a little drama of back and forth. Both teams actually switched sides on the zones for a moment. You got the sense they were never truly going to give it up solely because of that piece.
So K-Bot, we have Clan Blitz coming up here. What's the counterplay for Ascension? Because it really feels like their hands are full with these double 52 gals. Is there anything you look at to try and give themselves a little bit more of an advantage in these one-on-one firefights?
I mean, you have to imagine that you have to change something up compositionally, right? That's the one thing. These two teams aren't necessarily playing distinct styles, right? They might have slightly different ways of doing it. Sure, there's a 52 gal and maybe there's a tri-slosher on the other side, but both these teams are trying to go for firefights, trying to go for trades all of the time. They're not really slowly taking their process up. They're not slowly building up ink control. They're not really doing a lot to actually, synergize with their teammates as well as maybe I'd like to see them try to do. So we'll see if they can start to adapt a little bit more of that. Maybe it's a little bit of a weapon composition. Maybe it's a little bit of a mentality change as well. I think both are perfectly valid, but it looks like right now, at least on the last two maps, that it was DNA that were able to get the best of Ascension. So I feel like something's got to change, because that's the other thing here too. This might be Ascension's closest chance to punching their ticket to that North American Championship, and there is no team that wants left out of that. There might be a world where they are not here in January's event, and so they've really got to step up here to make sure that they capitalize on this opportunity.
In 9 with Clan Blitz, it's weird not seeing a lot of crab tanks and tenta missiles being thrown out there. So based upon the specials we've seen with their loadouts the last couple of games, how are those going to be utilized in Clan Blitz here?
Yeah, it's going to be an intriguing piece because I do think that both teams are trying to coordinate different dives that they do. Again, we've seen the MO here. One side is going to try to pair up either their machine or their tri-slosher with Twig on the 52 gal and make openings from there, attack from there, coordinate from there. On the other side, DNA is more than happy to split things up because they have such great survivability on their weapons. One of their weapons has a Booyah Bomb, and we know how long that survives, and the other two have walls. So a lot of this is going to come down to, I believe at least, who gets an early lead and if it's a big enough lead, because once this has started becoming a little bit of a back and forth, a little bit of a pull, we have seen that go in favor of DNA, simply because more often than not, they can get their win condition set up, which is separate the opposing team, dive in on them. Anybody can do that, surely, right?
And we've seen that, K-Bot. DNA is not afraid to shift to more of a defensive focus as soon as they get the lead. We saw that in tower control, or I think it was Rainmaker not too long ago, that they have no problem just sitting back with that lead, letting the other team come to them and doing what they need to do defensively rather than try and thin themselves out going for the knockout potentially.
Yeah, absolutely the case. And I think, any really solid competitive team at this stage of the game has to have the ability to recognize that, hey, right now we have complete control of the lead. We are feeling incredibly comfortable, and all we've got to do is prevent a power clam from going in our basket. Here, a Scorch Gorge, going to be easy to do that. Make sure you're watching this corner turn. If you're controlling the ink around this corner, all of the sudden, the path to the basket is not going to be favorable to the enemy team.
And again, 9, no loadout changes, so these teams are just going to keep doing it the old-fashioned way they have been, in an early wipeout by Ascension. 9, how about that?
You don't usually see wipeouts take 20 seconds at this level. Usually someone's at least sitting back to build up special, but no, not even that. We said who was going to take the early lead. 38 left on the clock, and this is not yet done. 2 sustained specials here to make sure the pressure still goes. Twig is going to have the opportunity to get back to this. Gets another one in, finally, quickly moving through and closing that. But to say the damage is done would be the cliche of all cliches at this point. What a way to start it off.
In an opening gambit coming out from Ascension as they throw down the gauntlet. They want to push this to 5 games, 32-100. Right from the tee off here, and now for DNA, they really got to focus on an offensive approach here, K-Bot.
And it looks like they were actually doing a good job of it, but no, that splash ball doesn't go down in time, and Shinx is still able to come up big with a Tri-Slosher, slowing things down for just a little while longer, and there's the Charger pick, taking off Zeke to make sure that DNA can't find a power clam into the basket. Well done on the defensive side for Ascension, right when they needed it, it holds true.
Ascension with 2 forced fumbles at key moments. That's going to put DNA back to start once again. They're going to have to move forward. No power clam in possession quite yet. But now we see the ink back coming out, which is going to be a very important weapon defensively for Ascension when they choose to use it here, 9.
Yep, and you see moving back and throwing bombs there. They understood that if they got encroached on with this Booyah Bomb and they were able to get their walls set up, there wasn't going to be much they could do about it. So you throw bombs early, you try to dissuade them from doing that until you get your other defenders up. A nice Booyah Bomb here, you've got multiple defenders in place. You are perfectly fine with giving up that 1 score when it could have been a whole lot worse.
No problem there at all for Ascension. Still a sizable lead, under 3 minutes left. Still plenty of time, as you all know. But at this point for Ascension here, K-Bot, it feels like you can do a lot with this type of lead. You can choose when to be aggressive. You can also fall back defensively, knowing that you don't have that pressure, trying to fight back for the lead again.
Precisely the case. Looks like they might have been trying to make a blitz for it there, but it's going to get taken out in the process. One of the things we didn't get the chance to talk about so far is Helix on the E-Leader now versus Splen on this Splat Charger. Splatter Scope, excuse me, is a little bit less range than this E-Leader, so we'll see if Helix is able to use that to his advantage, but so far hasn't actually been able to find much of anything, and now pushed back a little far with how many bombs are coming in from the enemy team. Ascension's making sure that DNA doesn't have the full space that they would want.
9 clams in possession for DNA. You saw that Wavebreaker ready to go. However, Synapse is going to pick up a huge splat at that point, 3-3 and a power clam, so they can move forward and break through. Now it's 4-2 for a second, trying to fight through this Killer Whale 5.1. They just got to open the basket. There's some points there. They're able to get it open. However, 9, Ascension does plenty. They don't mind giving up those 10 points.
Yeah, again, if this is all they give up, they're perfectly fine with it. And there was another power claim, still is another power claim up on the map here. So they had threatened big points all the way through. Instead, again, Ascension collapsing at the right time, despite Helix hitting a great shot to open that back up. Now, once again, they've got a great opportunity to push. And you see that Twig is intentionally not picking up that 8th clam, determining that it's more important for that position to stay hidden, get a couple more fights, and try to work from there.
Well, picks up the 8th clam, quickly gets rid of the power clam, though, and then you've got a teammate super jumping in and an opportunity to possibly move forward with that Booyah Bomb, trying to clear out some real estate. Swin trying to move forward. Here comes the ink back, an opportunity for Ascension to march forward. Tri-Slosher going to try and help, picks up the splat, but then a trade, and DNA able to hold strong, but under a minute left here. Oh, no! You see the power clam picked up right there. K-Bot, Ascension getting a gift.
Yeah, DNA getting a little ahead of themselves. You have to make sure that you go back to your fundamentals. Getting any little ounce of ink out of the area is something that the one singular player on the opposing team can utilize to your advantage. Exactly what they did there. But now a barrier break comes through, and that's actually going to be the lead almost immediately by DNA. They throw in so many clams in the process. It might be sticking around for a few more. Looks like Shinix is trying to come on up here, but Helix has got at least one more to throw back in. Now down to the 7-point mark. Ascension has no clams to their name. They're going to have to scramble to find something.
DNA unloading the Costco-sized batch of clams into the basket. They now have a huge 32-7 lead. Just a few moments away from going on to losers finals. Swin. Can Swin offer one more ray of hope for Ascension? Can Ascension do it? They have 8 clams. That's going to be enough. They've got to fill the basket. 6 more. Ascension trying to push this to a game 5, and they do. Ascension just before the horn goes off, able to get the dub here, 9.
Two unbelievable sequences there. I mean, I in no way saw DNA having those resources. So often in this game, when you have to turn back to deal with someone who is scoring as they did to Evan, who snuck back in and scored that power clam to slow them down a little bit, so often that means that's it. You don't have enough resources. You have spent too much time dealing with a threat behind you to truly set up a major attack. But they had the wherewithal, and again, the walls. We keep talking about the walls. To be able to set down, hide behind that, and make your sustained push. And I have no idea where Ascension was able to pull that out of. They were just entering overtime as the pity clam fell on them. They were so close to not even getting overtime. Like, I cannot reiterate to you all how close that game was, and for Ascension to have it, of course we're going to game 5. What a day of Splatoon this has been.
And 9, to go right back at you, you've mentioned before, teams that win game 4 today are undefeated in game 5 because now you can pick the game mode that you want, which usually determines the success of your team. So this will be fascinating. And K-Bot, for Ascension, this is obviously exciting, but for DNA, you're right there on the doorstep of advancing. How do you collect yourselves after that and try and get your confidence and momentum back up for game 5?
I mean, it's tough, but I think what you have to remind yourselves if you're DNA right now is that you just had just as fantastic of a push as Ascension had there at the end of the game. It just was unfortunate that Ascension had the first push of the game, right? And had built that up all the way throughout the entirety of the game. So look, DNA showed plenty of signs of promise there in the last one, and I have no doubts has the ability to come through with that. Don't let the fact that the game didn't go your way dissuade you. Stand firm here. Make sure you're taking this one as much as you can, because like I said earlier, this could be the furthest you get to getting a ticket to go to that Splatoon 3 North American Championship.
9, tower control, brine water springs. What do you expect to see these loadouts, this map, this mode? Game 5, winner moves on. Loser, you're done until the next chance in January to try and get yourself to the Splatoon 3 North American Championship.
Yeah, the tower control pick is not surprising at all. If you recall in Game 1, Ascension looked positively dominant on it. Now that was on Eeltail, and we have talked at length about why Eeltail fits the way that Ascension wants to play and plays to their strengths. But they are going tower control here. Brine Water, this is an interesting one because we've talked only about this map on Splat Zones in a major way, because when we see it played on Splat Zones, that's where the crab tanks come out. That's where we talk so much about influencing the zone from a distance and do you have the tools to do it. But when you change it over to tower control, suddenly the entire last portion where the tower moves through is a war zone. You don't have enough walls. You could throw out 2 walls here for each 52 gallon. It still wouldn't be enough protection for how dangerous things can get there. So it's not surprising at all to see Ascension go to tower control, but once the fights start happening, I have no idea who to favor.
So if DNA gets the victory, we'll move on to a rematch of our first winner semis between Destiny Bond and DNA. If Ascension gets the victory, we get another matchup, but this is the 3rd game 5 of the day, exactly what you tune in for. Tower control, brine water springs, for all the marbles here to move on. Let's see which team can rise above and keep their tournament hopes alive. No changes, why would you? It's gotten you this far. Ascension at 2 games, DNA at 2 games. Let's see which team can strike first and pick up that tower, K-Bot, because we've seen Ascension before. They want to make sure they have the right play on the field before they take the tower. It certainly isn't a sprint right to it at the beginning.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they're trying to do here. They're trying to set things up, but now actually we're looking to try to set things up a little bit too quietly, get punished for it as DNA sweeps right through them and are now looking to take their sights up this ramp, this long climb ahead for the tower. It's already at this first checkpoint that's going to get cleared quite easily, but just how much further are they going to be able to take this?
Smothering opening gambit here by DNA. 9, you see it, they worked their way up the ramp, and now it's Ascension trying to just fight back here. They've got the tower stopped. Finally the tower is returning, but 56, you'll certainly take it if you're DNA.
Yeah, you'll take it. This is another one of those maps where that first checkpoint usually isn't that big of an issue. Usually if you have a convincing hold of mid, you take it there. But that second checkpoint is where things get dicey. The interesting thing here is Twig moves around, is very early on in that opening push. We saw the members of DNA immediately go and attack Swen to not let that E-leader affect them getting on the tower. Helix, on the other hand, has had a much comparatively safer way to get to the tower and is now actually even pushing up. This is the moment. 1 or 2 shots from this E-leader could rip this game apart.
That wall lasted just a 1/10 of a second long enough to provide some cover right there, K-Bot. But now, Ascension, this is going to be their most difficult defensive stand so far. But how about the splat on Twig, K-Bot?
There it is, exactly what Nine's talking about. If this E-leader gets in position, gets a few splats, all of a sudden the door is going to remain open for DNA. You'll notice Ascension has not cleared past this angle. Now it's going to be looking to try to find the drop. Finally, Helix is forced to move back. Booyah Bomb comes out as well, trying to buy all of this space, and it looks like Ascension have finally done it to break back out, but they've got to be careful of some of the members of DNA that are still behind them. Zeke is still there with the wall going down here as well. Synapse there to boot. Things are so chaotic here as DNA is continuing to stall things out. It's the survivability of this 52 gal, Jordan, that we keep talking about. Now Dark comes up with a few as well. DNA continues to hold on to the middle of the map.
Yeah, we saw Twig run around like a greased pig for a second there, just avoiding everything. Here comes a Booyah Bomb. It is all DNA with under 2.5 minutes left, though. We have yet to see Ascension even take the tower, but there you go. Cleaning things up is Swen with that E-leader, but 9 at a certain point, Ascension's going to have to move the troops forward.
Yeah, they're going to have to. They're having such a difficult time doing it because you saw it right there, perfectly on your screen. Synapse moves up, throws down the wall, and all momentum is stifled there. Shinix can't do anything about that once the wall is out. It's such a strong weapon, this Tri-Slosher, but it can't get past it. It doesn't have the range to threaten beyond, and it doesn't have a bomb to break it either. So finally, Shinix has jumped back in. They have their own 52 gal there, and they might know the location of Synapse. It appears that they don't. Synapse actually has a look at the tower. The E-leaders firing at each other. It's all going to be the chaos below the E-leaders that matters, though. Swen moving up here. They've got a great cycle of specials here, and they might be able to take it here. It's been a complete reversal.
Ascension takes the lead. 1:30 left, working through the final checkpoint, trying to push their way to losers finals. They're still on the tower. Zeke finally able to chase them off. 3-2 advantage on the map for DNA, but now time is not in favor for DNA. You've got to make a significant push past the checkpoint here, K-Bot. A really difficult situation for DNA coming up.
And look, again, as much as DNA was able to stall out with those splash walls going down, they weren't able to gain as much space as they might have liked. And that's exactly what they have to do if they want to try to, again, go up this climb of brine water. We'll see if they can do it now, starting to increase their territory, drop by drop of ink, but it looks like it might not be the case this time around, as already members of Ascension are starting to dive forward on top of this tower. It's a 3-down situation already, and it looks like DNA is going to have to go back to the drawing board to make another push with just 37 to play.
The Tri-Slosher is just a bucket of trouble for DNA at this point. 30 seconds left, and now Ascension can lock down on defense. Inkjet coming out. It's just a matter of pushing the opponent and keeping them at bay as Ascension just a few ticks of the clock away from moving forward. There's a splat 4-2 here, 9. The gates have possibly opened for DNA.
Yep, they've got one more opportunity, and everything K-Bot said, 100% correct. All the good things that the wall brings you on the defensive side hurts on the offensive side. You don't have any way to make space with a bomb, so you're going to have to do it with your specials. They've used 2 of them and now a third to do it. Shinex crashing through with a Booyah Bomb, going for it, and Shinex will touch it. Ascension will take the 3-2 victory, just enough on the defensive side to move through. There's a lot of purple paint on one side, but they did just enough. And again, an incredible set here between 2 fantastic teams.
For Ascension, they were looking at elimination last game. It took a last-minute overtime offensive push and Clan Blitz to set up a Game 5, and then they closed the door on DNA. So thank you to DNA for participating. Hopefully we'll see you back here in January. You'll get another chance. But that's going to set up losers finals here in just a minute. And KBOT, you have to credit Ascension and their ability to not quit. And so now they get a chance to take on Destiny Bond, who fell 3-0 to Starburst in winners finals. We have one more spot left in the Splatoon 3 North American Championship that we'll be passing out today. Don't miss it when we come back. Destiny Bond versus Ascension. Who else will join Starburst in those North American finals? Find out when we return.
The Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass DLC. Start your engines for 8 courses in Wave 3. Maple Treeway. Rainbow Road. Boo Lake. Berlin Byways. Rock Mountain. Peach Gardens. London Loop. And Merry Mountain. The Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass. 8 courses at a time will release over 6 waves as paid DLC for the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe game. That's 48 courses, zooming in by the end of 2023. Wave 3 launches December 7th on the Nintendo Switch system. Race on these courses at no additional cost with a paid Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack membership. Or purchase the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass DLC on its own.
Whether it's to play your favorite game, to play for school pride, or for the thrill of competition. Play competitively with Play Versus. Visit playvs.com today for more information.
And welcome back to the Splatoon 3 Splatsville Showdown Tournament. Jordan Ken alongside 9, and joining us from Wahoo World is K-Bot. You know a big run's coming, by the way, so just don't make sure you don't hang out there for too long, my friend. As we get set for Losers Finals, we have one more spot available in the Splatoon 3 North American Championship, and it's going to be between Destiny Bond and Ascension. And K-Bot, on paper, what are you looking at between these two squads? Because Ascension's riding some momentum, but Destiny Bond also took care of business in their winter semis.
So here's the deal, right? Entering this tournament, even before any matches were played in the Turf War ladder stage last night, everyone probably thought there were 3 likely tournament favorites. They were Starburst, Destiny Bond, and Sayonara. Starburst was able to beat both of those 2 teams in order to punch their ticket to the North American Championship, but now we'll see if Destiny Bond can try to do the same. Of course, Sayonara was eliminated by Starburst earlier, so we'll see if they can do that, but now they've got to go up against this Ascension squad, who, Jordan, as you mentioned, is steamrolling forward with momentum, appears to be rising to the challenge just fine, and now might actually have their chance to punch their ticket here.
Let's go ahead and check out the rules one more time as we get set for our final set of the evening. Top 4, best of 5 double elimination. Higher seed will choose the mode, lower seed will choose the stage, winning team will choose the mode, losing team will choose the stage, and what's interesting, teams that win Game 4, 3-0 here today. And Game 5, those are your game modes, and your map list, of course, a mix of wide open and some narrow maps as well, too. And so 9, it's interesting because you're going to see some crab coming out from Destiny Bond, whereas Ascension did not have to deal with that with DNA, and you wonder, how are those 52 gals going to do against the crab tanks coming out that have been so successful for Destiny Bond?
Yeah, this is the interesting piece where the 2 hybrid comps start to collide, right? Destiny Bond, or I'm sorry, DNA earlier ran double 52. On the other side, with Starburst, we had double crab. These were the 2 that mixed it a little bit. One crab or no crabs, it just wasn't a central focus of their composition. They wanted to create small pieces of separation, dive, engage in the team fights, and make it work from there. The big piece of this set that will be different, though, is Swen's E-Leader. We talked a lot about the E-Leaders in that last set because, we had 2 of them, but that is not one of the weapons that Bliss will be playing on the side of Destiny Bond. And again, the E-Leader is the reason why the crab and the missiles have been pushed to the forefront, because it can be so difficult to deal with on so many of these maps. So that's the one piece of this that I would be looking at. Whichever of these anchor players is able to find more ways to contribute is going to give their team a significant advantage.
That's a really good point that 9 makes here, K-Bot, because the anchor play we've seen, especially in game modes like tower control, where that anchor is going to move forward, is going to go a long way. How can the other players support their anchors when you look at the matchup of these 2 teams?
Yeah, I mean, the other players really are all about trying to buy space. Here's the thing. In Destiny Bond's match versus DNA, they didn't really have an answer for the E-Leader. Now, they were able to squeak it by thanks to a few firefights. They were able to turn into squid advantages on the map and then start snowballing pushes forward. But when things came down to more neutral stages, they couldn't find effective pushes forward around the E-Leader of Helix. I expect Swen's E-Leader to be no different. And so to support those efforts, really what Ascension wants to try to do is buy some space with a little bit more of that ink control across the map. All of a sudden, if that goes out, that E-Leader will be feeling nice and comfy and will likely be able to lock down potential opportunities for pushes forward from Destiny Bond.
And then you look at the Splashmatic as far as what it's going to be able to do, and why has this been such a powerful weapon here, 9? Obviously, it's the crab tank that comes with it, but when you're not utilizing that special, why have folks really gravitated towards that?
Yeah, K-Bot said earlier, this is a weapon that has at least a decent answer for everything in the game, because it has the burst bomb, which, as we've talked about, relation to wall, maybe not so good, but it means that you can hit people who are retreating if you catch them with a couple of your shots earlier, maybe a machine that hits them, so you can close the deal on some retreating players, and it's not a bad way to scout out where the opponent's doing, push them back a little bit at very low commitment, because burst bomb doesn't take up as much of your tank, and then a short-range shooter. We know that thing's building specials, and we know if it gets in an up-close firefight, it's going to have the mobility. It's a lightweight weapon, which is an important designation in a lot of these shooting matchups, so it gets additional mobility and isn't hit as hard by Ninja Squid. So, a little bit of everything, to say the least.
All right. Losers Finals. Destiny Bond taking on Ascension. We'll see which team can fight their way forward to the second spot in our Splatoon 3 North American Championship. We are starting with Tower Control, Inkblot Art Academy. And already, looking at these loadouts here, K-Bot, anything stand out to you?
You know, worth noting for those of you that might be just joining us, the double sloshing machine composition out of Destiny Bond is something we saw them play a little bit too. Sometimes you don't want to be limited by something that is forced to sit in one spot on the back lines as an anchor, but it looks like Destiny Bond actually is going to go 3 down in the process already, starting out neutral, but trades going back and forth here. Mid is still very much contested, and only one of these members is going to hop on the tower for Destiny Bond. They are cruising forward here at breakneck speeds already, breaking past this first checkpoint.
Yeah, Nine, the laundromat is putting in work right now for Destiny Bond as they push forward, getting to this second checkpoint, and you just see how impressive it is, and beautiful shot with that Trizuka by Swin, and that's going to put tremendous pressure on Ascension, and Destiny Bond already, look at all that ink, Nine.
Yeah, there's something to be said for the power of multi-splats. Taking a couple of your opponents out in quick succession means that you are going to be able to take a lot of space on top of that and move up as well. That's exactly what Bliss did. Got 2 people down and then won an additional 1v1 on the tower. It has all been catalyzed off of that. Zero had the nice shot to follow up, but all of that big 39-point credit to Bliss for.
Swin with a nice little pickup there. However, Ascension still struggling at this point. They have yet to claim the tower. They're facing a 39-0 lead at the point for Destiny Bond. You see Swin trying to back up just a little bit, provide some support, but so much yellow ink in the middle of this map, and right now it feels like, K-Bot, that Ascension just can't match the ink output that we're seeing from Destiny Bond.
They can't, and again, it all comes down to not having to rely on an anchor. Destiny Bond's game plan right now says that sometimes the best defense is just more offense. Do not expect them to back off here whatsoever. Even if they start going a few members down, they'll retreat back into mid, allow for jumps to come back, allowing for a little bit more of this sustained pressure coming in. Looks like Jared diving in again, gonna find a few trades here, trying to slow down potential pushes for Ascension, as it looks like they might have actually finally done it. There's the wipeout with 2 members up. It looks like Ascension might have an opportunity here to at least break this first checkpoint.
Ascension knocking Destiny Bond off the surfboard. They get the wipeout. Now a chance to move through the very first checkpoint. They finally, actually they need to hop on it one more time here. But it's now 3-2 on the map. They lose the tower. Destiny Bond still enjoying a sizable lead with 2:30 left in the game. And 9 at this point, Destiny Bond, it just feels like the mobility, as K-Bot pointed out. No true anchor. You've got sloshing machines going everywhere. It feels like it's got Ascension scrambling left and right.
Yeah, it's certainly taken them a little moment because they have to get Swen set up in positions for that weapon to truly be effective here. You don't need to put the sloshing machine anywhere. That thing is going to find its way into the fight and make the work happen from there. Jared taking a dive down there. They're desperately trying to break up some of the protection of this tower. That's not going to happen. Juan ran out of ink partway through that, and it looks like Bliss almost out of ink as well. Now down, so many people going down so quickly. Hold on. I'm not sure that this last checkpoint is going to last very long either.
Ascension trying to send Destiny Bond to the canvas. They've got 2 of their members down. 3-2 advantage. Can Ascension look for the knockout here? They're past the final checkpoint. It's a wipeout, but Destiny Bond now has to climb back into this game here, down 39-11, minute and a half left, and Ascension, they were just steady and stable and stayed alive when they needed to, K-Bot, and now they have the luxury of playing defense.
Have the luxury of playing defense, but they've got to be careful here. Jared's looking to try to approach on this left side. Could be spelled disaster here if he's able to come through, but no, gets shut down there. Well done. Twig cleans things up here, and now Ascension has the opportunity to move back into mid. They'll start stabilizing the position of this game just a little bit more, pumping out a bit more ink and waiting for the drops to come in, but no. Now Twig gets caught out. It's a 3-down situation, and Destiny Bond is pushing forward almost immediately.
Under a minute left, Destiny Bond has an opportunity here. It's 3-3 with a special on the map. They pick up the quick splat on one of those sloshing machines for Ascension. Here's the chance. They've cleared the 2 checkpoints. They just have to get to that final one, but they still have to clear the full thing here. 9, what are they looking to do now that they're deep in Ascension enemy territory?
More than anything, survive. At this point, it's good to go in and fight, but you need all the resources to attack possible. Now that Zero goes down, that means that there's no pincer or team fight for Jared to engage in, and it's all going to fall apart from there. No amount of solo play is going to save that portion of it. Jared has jumped back in, but until they're able to get 2 or 3 down, that push is at the end. And again, that's why it's so difficult at this level. One person going down, a quarter of your resources gone. and with just 10 seconds left, they're going to need a miracle to pull this one back.
Yeah, Destiny Bond down 2 players on the map, but all of a sudden a wipeout by Ascension, and that is the defensive rejection needed by Ascension to go ahead and take game 1. So impressive work by Ascension here, K-Bot, of withstanding that initial push and then just making their one push count and doing what they needed to do, as Nine pointed out, stay alive in enemy territory, use those resources, and they're able to do it.
And for Ascension, this is the reason why you want some little bit more versatility and flexibility in your weapon composition, right? If they're able to have both the Tri-Slosher that can dive in, find trades, and do all of these sorts of things, but also have the luxury of having an E-Leader that can play much further back, that can try to slow down the pace of the game, has the Wavebreaker special as well to slow down and take space away from the enemy team, they're able to utilize their resources and be able to play a lot of that much the same way that you might see a single Splash-O-Matic do in one game, dropping back to the back line for Crab Tank, going forward with Burst Bomb and the main weapon combo. Meanwhile, Destiny Bond's side, again, their strategy is offense, offense, offense. And sometimes it looks like things just aren't able to come together because, again, they don't have a lot of consistent long-range threats to take care of that E-Leader unless they're committing like both of their Booyah Bombs or something just to take care of that target.
What's interesting, Nine, is you look at the double sloshing machine comp for Destiny Bond, and because it's tower control, it forces one of your sloshing machines to be a slow-moving anchor. It's not like Clan Blitz or Splat Zones or Rainmaker where you've got free reign. You've got to follow the track of that tower, and it felt like they lost that mobility advantage as soon as they got deep into Ascension territory.
That's actually a great point there, Jordan, because in the past when we saw a double slashing machine back in Splatoon 2, one of those slashing machines usually had a Stingray. It had a way to contribute while being far away. In Splatoon 3, there's not nearly as many global specials, and certainly you can chuck that Booyah Bomb really far, but that also means you get off the tower when you do so, and it stops the tower moving. So all of this is to say, on tower control, Ascension with their E-Leader can still keep their weapon relevant in what's going on in the game. And earlier, a concept I brought up, having a decent answer all the time, there's something to be said for having a great answer some of the time. And that some of the time is when both teams are riding tower. One of them has a weapon that contributes all the time, one only some of the time.
Rainmaker coming up next here. You imagine you won't see any changes in these comps, so I think you give the movement advantage to Destiny Bond once again here, K-Bot. But what we've seen is, I think you pointed out really well, it seems like they have an answer for everything, does Ascension, where they can continue to fight at multiple levels. So with this Rainmaker coming up, what's going to be key for a team with a true anchor? What do you want to make sure you do as you advance this Rainmaker?
Again, as you're trying to advance the Rainmaker, finding those opportunities where you have those openings. Getting Shinex in position with that Tri-Slosher, taking care of 1, 2 members. All of a sudden, you're able to open up the window of opportunity for that Rainmaker to start going forward. Meanwhile, though, for Ascension on the defensive side, they want to try to limit the pathways in for Destiny Bond, because again, Destiny Bond is going to be charging at them the entire way through. They're going to be steamrolling, trying to get right on up there towards that enemy base, and that'll be something that they have to be careful of. If you're Destiny Bond, sometimes you might just have to get a little bit lucky, right? Go to that one spot where the opposing team isn't looking to try to make a play happen.
All right, we've got Brinewater Springs, Rainmaker. This is a map, as you know, Nine, where you can't get away from all the fighting happening at this point. You've got to engage, and so this type of map where things are a little bit more restricted and you've got that very difficult ramp at the end and the enemy spawn to go up. Looking at these two comps, who do you give the advantage to, at least on paper, with these comps?
Yeah, on paper, you would usually say the more mobile team wins, but I would be stunned if Bliss didn't go back to the back lines. And if so, it might just be not really feeling backlined here, but they're going to have a literal uphill battle to fight if they want to make those big pushes. And we know what Swen is capable of with the variety of chargers here, and it's difficult to push past that. You know that Twig is going to be up front throwing the walls, and Shinex is more than happy to trade all day. So what all of that ends up meaning is stalling. It means it slows down. And in Rainmaker, if the opponent has the Rainmaker, you passively build up special meter. So they're going to look to get the leads and stall. Bliss is going to stay on the sloshing machine, so it's mobility and fighting through versus stalling things out once you have a lead.
And that's really the difference between these two teams. The roles of their anchors, the stationary, steady hand of the E-Leader versus the very athletic, dynamic sloshing machine, We'll see which one can help anchor their team to victory here in Game 2. Ascension trying to build that 2-0 lead and find a way to the North American Championship for Splatoon 3, and an early couple of splats. Destiny Bond with the numbers advantage here, K-Bot.
Yeah, Destiny Bond is able to come up with this and then able to clean up the rest on a few drops. Now, we've seen this before. The first checkpoint, very easy to take care of. The question is going to be as they start to turn around and start to come uphill, will they be able to take care of business? But they are set up to do that beautifully now with just how far forward Jared's crab tank is. Look at this. Zero gets it all the way down to 28 within the first minute of the game. Wheel Bomb going to get thrown out here by Evan. Ascension buying some space and dropping this Rainmaker right on off the left side to buy themselves a little bit of breathing room.
So under a minute in already, and you've got Destiny Bond with a huge lead, but we've seen Ascension bounce back multiple times, but right there, everybody except the back line was removed, and so this is a completely different Destiny Bond team we're seeing here, Nine, and you're starting to see that mobility really pay off.
Yeah, and the one time that this ends up working on the offensive side is when you've just taken down everybody so quickly that you can move up into a possession to threaten them here. Jared gonna move and dash, squid rolling all the way. Jared, are you serious? That might be the greatest carry of the Rainmaker I've ever seen!
Looking like Barry Sanders there with the Rainmaker just bobbing and weaving and dodging everything. An impressive display as Destiny Bond takes little to no time to get the knockout, a rare knockout during this tournament that we really don't see from too many teams here. So K-Bot, you see the movement really coming into play when you remove that slow-moving tower that was really slowing down a lot of the play for these sloshing machines for Destiny Bond.
Yeah, exactly the case, right? The second that you've got all four members working together as a unit to start laying down some ink for that Rainmaker to start going, or even just start building up the presence to pick up the Rainmaker in the first place, all of these things are going to pair together beautifully to allow that Rainmaker to have that path forward, and you're not limited by an E-leader that's slowing you down on the back lines, right? All of a sudden, you've got four members throwing bombs, doing everything in their power to get things moving forward.
Splat Zone's coming up next here, and I'll ask you the same question here, Nine. You've got some mobility versus a true anchor in the E-leader that can stay stationary and ink the zone from a far distance away. So this is going to be fascinating to see which way it works out, and obviously the map will play a huge role in this.
Yeah, the map and also Splat Zones tends to be where the E-leader is really able to shine. It is so difficult to meaningfully push it off without taking the zone first, and so that's why this map's going to be a really, really important piece. There are some of the maps that we have selected where you can push an E-leader out of the way without having to take zone in a good portion of the map, and somewhere you are not going to touch the E-leader until you have zone, and that is a very different dynamic. As nuanced as it may seem, trust me, it means a lot as these teams start to attack. So this is another map where I'm very curious, what is Bliss going to play? Are we going to see going back to a true slower anchor? I know the faster of the two anchors, certainly, but that's an answer they're going to have to find something very quickly. After an emphatic game like that, it can be hard to put the sloshing machine away, but they're going to need to find an answer here within just a few seconds.
Yeah, we've seen Bliss use that heavy splatling and had a lot of impact on Splat Zones last time, but you look at how dominant of a victory they just had on Rainmaker with those double sloshers, and we'll see what happens here. So looking at Splat Zones, one zone or two zones is going to make a huge impact on this one, K-Bot, but you said it before, being able to lock out the opponent. And this is where I'm thinking when you get to that lockout stage of pushing forward and needing to move, those double sloshers might be the way to go.
Yeah, and again, going to be incredibly map dependent, right? If you can have a little bit more of the verticality in that map, all of a sudden, those sloshing machines going to come in full force. That beautiful arc shot right over top of the ledge that doesn't lose any damage in the process is going to be so critical in order to bring that back one in. So we'll see what happens here and what these teams do decide to go. But I will say, going back to your point here earlier, it's worth noting that generally speaking, a heavy splatling, let's say, probably isn't going to have a favorable matchup into an E-leader, right? Because the E-leader both outranges and is probably going to end up outsplatting that heavy. So it's probably one of the reasons why we're not seeing Bliss go over to more of this backline style, instead opting for something more mobile and able to be a little bit more potentially of a threat in other ways, other areas across the map.
Well, Nine, we're going to Eeltail Alley, which means if you're an E-leader, that really takes away the East and West. So you're just focusing on a narrow scope, and you figure this is an opportunity for Destiny Bond to possibly get back into this thing, or can Ascension really start to put some pressure on them?
Yeah, I mean, this was the map that made everybody even angrier at E-Leader than they already were. We have seen teams that do not have a traditional E-Leader player still pick it on this map for this exact reason. If there was ever a time for Swen to take control of this, it would be this game. Look for how Destiny Bond opts to pressure Swen to knock him off their spot and how much they have to commit to do it.
Swen and that E-Leader, Eeltail Alley, a narrow map. Can he make Destiny Bond pay, or will Destiny Bond, as we see here, Bliss going with the Explosher, K-Bot?
Yeah, and this Explosher, probably main goal, get a little bit of burst damage on multiple sides of the zone, right? If it can sit back from a little bit of a distance, it'll have just a great time of doing that, especially given how large this zone can feel. And it looks like that's exactly the position you're expecting Bliss to be in here. We'll see what comes to this as neutral trades are starting us off.
Also, a little bit of a change for Ascension. We see the Splash-O-Matic coming out for them, 9.
Yep, again, the same thing applies the other way. K-Bot brought out the fact that this zone can seem impossible to take. One of the few weapons in the game that can put out enough turf to do that is actually this Explosion. So everything we said about wanting to move the E-Leader, you want to do the same here with the Crab Tank. Get that thing set up and get that Explosion out of position.
And K-Bot, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just a very junky zone. A lot of pillars and barriers in the way of this zone in order to claim this large solo zone to 9's point. But finally, it's taken by Destiny Bond, and here they go trying to push forward with the lockout. They'll take that 2-for-1 trade.
Yeah, and now 3 down for Ascension. Destiny Bond moving very far forward here. Evan's going to get caught out as well. Coming in, back off with a respawn. And now Ascension has to play their cards right. You see Shinx patiently waiting. It's going to get marked, but has this Crab Tank looking to challenge and take back their own bridge. The critical part of the map where this lockout's going to start to happen.
Shinx applying pressure with that Crab Tank, as K-Bot pointed out. Destiny Bond still holding on to the zone, and it's a sizable lead in the zone. Ascension's going to have to act here very quickly. Right now, still getting pushed out. Oh, the Trizooka cleaning things up. And now it's 4-2 on the map for Destiny Bond. They have to hold on for just 10 more seconds. They're starting to push forward. They've got no intention of sitting back on their laurels. 1 second left, and that will do it. Destiny Bond, one step away from their destiny in this tournament as they take the 2-1 advantage. And 9, once they got that zone, their ability to just lock out Ascension was incredibly impressive.
Well, they have no fear. They're going to move forward and attack and try to take this the distance. You saw how difficult it was for them to get the zone, so it is imperative for them, when they get the zone and get the opponent down a little bit, to get every little bit that they can. They understand that if it goes back to both sides, trading turf a little bit, sitting back, the E-Leader taking shots as the Explosion works around the map, they're not going to be able to get the big pushes that they want. They're not going to be able to enter the lockout phase of the game. So they move forward, they attack, they get the right follow-ups. And credit to Destiny Bond again. We spent the entire brief pregame of that match talking about how that was Swen's opportunity to take control. They never let Swen get set once they got that zone.
Here's what's interesting here, K-Bot. You have to do Clam Blitz here before you can repeat another mode. The only mode we've seen that's slowed down Destiny Bond was tower control, so now you can utilize that mobility once again, whether it's double sloshing machine or the Explosher. This is going to put Ascension in a very difficult situation based upon how do they deal with the athleticism that we're seeing from Destiny Bond.
Yeah, and it will. If you're Ascension here, I'm going to guess they're probably, okay, there it is. I was going to say about to get Scorched Gorge, and then of course it comes over in my ear. I was going to.
Sure, we'll take your word for it. Absolutely.
Right. But in any event here, right, Ascension won this map just barely versus DNA. If they did it there, they can do it here. Same game 4 thing. They know that they have a method that works here, and it's going to be all about trying to buy Swen a little bit of space on that E-Leader, starting to shut things down and making sure that they can limit potential opportunities for Destiny Bond to come back.
And 9, you could argue the entire set comes down to this game because whoever has won Game 4, 3-0 in Game 5s, you know they get a chance to choose that game mode. You would figure if Ascension gets the victory, they're going to pull up tower control one more time. Destiny Bond, Clam Blitz is all that's standing between them and a trip to the Splatoon 3 North America Championship. Can Ascension force a Game 5? We'll find out on Scorched Gorge, baby, as we see the 2 sloshing machines once again make their appearance here, 9.
Yep, and Zero has switched back over to the splatter shot again. I would not be surprised if he doesn't put this weapon away no matter what comes here in Game 4 or Game 5, but we talked about it earlier. This is a weapon that with the Trizooka, there's only one way that the opponent can defend, can really break open for the big multi-splash and the big pushes. They're actually using it in conjunction with a Crab Tank to gain solid control of mid, so already Ascension on the back foot. Bliss pushed up into a great position, another one down, and Destiny Bond is simply not letting up.
Destiny Bond has the power clam, and they've got reinforcements coming. 2-2. You get the early power clam. 74 is not anything you complain about, but there is Juan just dumping in a clam. Keep that clock moving, but you see all 4 members and a lot of purple ink by the basket. Nice little opening gambit by Destiny Bond, but if you're Ascension, you'll live with that, K-Bod.
You absolutely will. Only down to 71. That's a power clam and some change. I've seen plenty of pushes go much longer than that. And it's all going to be about how you can use the value once you start turning this corner. I've talked about it every single time we've seen this map, but it is the vital points where now Destiny Bond is starting to move forward. The few of their own specials looks like they're going to get punished for it in the process. And now, but meanwhile, Ascension isn't taking space back in mid. Now Shinix up in the air with this Inkjet looking to try to do just that. And finally, Ascension is going to break free into mid.
We just saw 3 Booyah Bombs go off and clear out a lot of real estate. Now here's a chance for Ascension to move forward. You see Swen just being very careful and cautious about tiptoeing forward. Here comes that ink back. That's going to really help clear things out. 3-2 numbers advantage, Ascension moving forward. Swen going to move forward, dump in that power clan, and here's an opportunity as Ascension piling up the lead here, 9.
Yep, great job there, great patience again, and you saw the members of Destiny Bond kind of understood that the writing on the wall, or was on the wall with that push, that they were going to have to give up those, and to give up a little bit more on top of that, they were willing to trade those points for the opportunity to continue playing the game to prevent the big knockout. But what else could we expect from these two teams? One throws a punch, the other throws a counter.
So now the lead is for Ascension, 42-71, but here's a chance for Destiny Bond, and they start to approach a little bit closer. You see they have that power cam ready to go. Trizooka trying to clear out some space, picks off Evan, but then the trade comes later as Twig gets a nice splat. And now it's 3-4 on the map, special ready to go for Ascension. They're trying to fight their way forward and retake mid here, and at this point, the aggression for Ascension is paying off even with that anchor backliner here, K-Bot.
Precisely the point. I mean, look, Destiny Bond had 4 specials online just a moment ago, and then they started getting splatted. Some of these went to favor of Ascension, and now look at this. Another ink back out on the map already, looking to try to shut things down and prevent Destiny Bond from moving forward. Looks like Jared getting in position. Now is the Crab Tank at the ready as well, opening up this window for Destiny Bond to move in. There's a power clam thrown in from Zero. Bliss has one. Will she be able to get there? Looks like she will, as there's no other defense coming in from Ascension for the time being. Where are the rest of the clams coming in from Destiny Bond? There's a few in from Juan to take the lead, but now with the presence that has been maintained here from Destiny Bond, it looks like they're going to be able to throw in even more, and Ascension still hasn't found an answer. Swen goes down once more. Finally, an ink bat right now in front of the basket, but a power clam comes in, and Destiny Bond is going to take it.
Destiny Bond able to get that power clam in at the last moment, and they go and take the game, the set, and they have punched their ticket to the Splatoon 3 North American Championship. And an unbelievable comeback by Destiny Bond, and it was just too much at the end there, 9, as several of their members came back from sea with clams in the boat, able to pour those in, and whew, what a
Indeed.
set of games and sets that we had here today. And just some initial thoughts here as we get set to look at this final bracket. But 9, what we've seen are 4 very balanced teams that it appears, and the future of competitive Splatoon 3 is going to be very exciting based upon the sample size we had here today.
Isn't it great?
Yes,
Isn't
it
it
is.
so
It's so
fun
good.
for 4 different teams to come in, all give each other great sets as they fight back and forth with different philosophies. We said earlier, the fundamental building blocks all of these teams are still approaching, but they're approaching it in different ways. I know it's subtle changes from time to time, but you can very much look at Ascension, the way that they wanted to play and separate the opposing teams. Double sloshing machine on one side, double splash-o-matic on the other side, double 52 gal on the other side. It's so great when teams play with what they're most comfortable with, they stick with it, and they ask their opponent to prove them wrong.
Let's take a look at the final bracket from today. As we said, 3 of our sets went the distance to Game 5s, but it is Starburst, and Destiny Bond, the two teams that met in winners finals that'll be headed to the Splatoon 3 North American Championships later this year. K-Bot, closing thoughts on all the fun that we saw here today.
Closing thoughts. I mean, I couldn't have said it better, really, what Nine was saying, right? With all of these close teams, things are going to be so incredible to continue watching for competitive Splatoon 3. And hey, look, with now Starburst and Destiny Bond out of the picture, maybe we'll be seeing DNA and Ascension come back, along with two extra teams coming back to our top 4 double elimination bracket that could give just as fun and interesting sets to watch. And I cannot wait to see those shortly after the holiday break.
Congratulations again to Starburst and Destiny Bond. Big thanks again to Ascension and DNA for some wonderful games here today. Also to Nine and K-Bot, excellent job as always, and our terrific production crew. Don't forget, we'll be back in January with Event 2 of the Splatoon 3 Splatsville Showdown tournament to find out the other two teams that'll find their way to the Splatoon 3 North American Championship. In the meantime, keep it tuned to Nintendo Versus for all of your Nintendo competitive action. From all of us here, enjoy your holidays, and we'll see you in the new year.